being 7:02 p.m. We will start this evening's Select Board meeting, Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. The first item on the agenda is reorganization of the Select Board. I will accept nominations for the chair of the Select Board.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Matt Kovas.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll accept nominations for the vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Julie Cruz.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll accept a nomination for the clerk.
Rock, paper, scissors?
I'll do it again. I'll do it again if you nominate.
I nominate Devon.
Ed Deval, is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? All in favor? Aye. All right, so the select board is set for the upcoming year. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Sure, come on up if you could please introduce yourself at the table.
Good evening all. Dan Mealy, 701 Main Street, Clinton. And thanks for your time this evening. So, I don't know how much time I have. So, I am here, being the owner of 701 Main Street, with grave concerns about the abutting property of Scooby's Bar and Grill. I came here about a year ago in front of the planning board. And actually, it was a civil discussion. I felt optimistic after this, and it was, they said that they were going to, apparently I'd met the developer, one of the proposed buyers, which I believe is now the buyer. It's supposed to be a minute clinic from what I understand. But anyway, I left that meeting feeling optimistic. I proposed to have a fence put in. The planning board agreed on it. They said, yeah, no problem, we'll get the fence. A year has gone by, guys, and there has been no progress with this property. My routine is this. I get up in the morning, I go to the gym, get a cup of coffee. I raise the blinders and look out the side of my kitchen window. What I'm looking at is a disgusting, filthy pit of overgrown infestation of animals, rotting deadfall. That's all the cleared brush that's been pushed up against our property line. We don't have much of a clearance, obviously, with the zoning laws here in this town and where we live. It has just turned into an absolute filth. And so I have pictures that I've taken this afternoon of the property. I'll be happy to email those to you. But it just is something out of the Amazon. So you look at it, and not only that, there's just been an accumulation of trash, broken bottles. I see furniture in there. So I don't know if people are using this as sort of a dumping ground. But look, I take great pride in our property. We keep it immaculate, and we also take great pride in this town. Obviously, it doesn't take a real estate agent to figure out that this has caused the devaluation of our property. To have this sort of abandoned piece of land and building that has just turned into an overgrown mess. In my opinion, I think it has also become a bit of a health hazard because of the animals that are sort of burrowed in there. There's, I see there's a hole in the roof, and there's plants, trees growing out of it. I mean, it's just, something needs to be done. And so, I'm using tonight as sort of my way of sounding off here, and hopefully the town can step in and intervene. And what I don't understand, if we have a signed purchase and sale agreement and with a proposed developer or builder, why they're not doing the neighborly thing to welcome themselves. Thank you very much for allowing us to come into Clinton to open up a place of business. Why not are they coming in and doing the right thing by at least somewhat aesthetically trying to keep it cleaned up? And so the thing is, I haven't seen any of that, and it's been well over a year. And I would suggest you guys take a walk around the property. I mean, you'll know what I'm talking about. From the front, there's really not much, overgrowth there. But when you get into the back, which is where our property abuts, I mean, it is a disaster. So the fence has also been spray painted on. It's broken, again, an eyesore, looks, you know, very unattractive. And we're just trying to do the right thing here to, you know, have good eye appeal, good attractiveness with our property as well as surrounding properties that we abut, so.
Thank you for coming and expressing your concerns, and,
Yeah.
and, you know, I empathize with you. You know, you take care of your property, and to having, the neighboring property, be dilapidated is a valid concern. Any concerns with that property that revolve around, infestations or, basically being neglected, I would direct you to the Board of Health, because
Okay.
that's where you'll want to start there, right? And then, as far as the new developer and their plans, that's something that this board doesn't oversee. So I would check back in with the planning board to see if there's any development with that property itself, but to address the immediate concerns of the animal infestation, insects, whatnot, I would start with the Board of Health.
Okay, so with all due respect, Matthew, Matthew?
Sure.
Okay. I talked to the Board of Health, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, okay? You guys were all the highest government here in the town of Clinton, so I called him, this person, I don't recall the person's name, and they said, "I'll go to the select board, you know, the selectmen." Okay, so what it sounds like, guys, is that we're kicking the can down the road here. And I don't want to come in with a veiled threat. In my line of work, I know plenty of real estate attorneys, okay? And I really don't want to have to go down that road. I want to try to resolve this and have the town intervene in some way, shape, or form to at least try to clean the place up. If that means reaching out to the developer and try to get something done. But it's getting to a point where it is really, it's bad. And you will know, and I have the pictures here on my phone. I wish I had a laptop with a projector and everything else to show you, but it is bad.
So Mr. Ward, does the Board of Selectmen does the Select Board have any oversight over health regulations in the town of Clinton?
No, the Board of Health is an elected board, and they have statutory duties that they can oversee if there's a health issue. This property has changed hands, so there's a realty company that's overseeing it now. So the building inspector has reached out to try to, notify them that we have concerns and complaints here. But absent, like the chair indicated, absent an infestation or a public health emergency, even with that, the town's limited as to access that we can go on private property without permission. So the building inspector is trying to locate the new owners and bring this to their attention as best we can. So we'll continue to do that and take whatever actions we can, but we are limited. We can't just go on there and take over the property ourselves. So.
Well, is there any way that we could have the new owners come in at least with some sort of a bobcat or machinery to at least clear some of the brush that's abutting our property, like right up against the fence? I mean, literally, we only have a 1 or 2 foot clearance of the zoning,
Right.
and so.
Right, and that's our intent. I don't know when the transfer took place, but I know the building inspector reached out to the realty company, and the person on the other end of the phone hadn't yet been fully aware that they now own, manage that property. So they were going to look into it and get back to the building inspector. When I checked with him this morning, he had not gotten a return call yet. So we are trying to go down that road, and if we get a hold of them, we'll certainly insist that they need to come out and do some care to that property. So we're working on it. That's the best I can say.
That's all we're asking. We're not asking to, have a walk on water here. It's just, at least try to clean it up a little bit to aesthetically make it a little bit more appealing. And so we're not looking out to a dump,
Right.
So.
And the plan was for the building to be demoed, so we were hoping that it would be
Yeah.
further along at this point.
Yeah.
But in any event, we'll do what we can to notify the new owners, so.
So as you can see, the can's not being kicked down the road by the Select Board or by the Board of Health. So the proper parties are involved. The speed at which it may be progressing may not be ideal for you, but
Right.
it's, you know, nobody's, your concerns have been, are valid, and we're taking action.
Sure.
So where, is there like a timeline, like when was the last time, like, is he gonna call back in a couple weeks, or?
Yeah, I
Or is it
think,
just,
I
like,
think they
can we
were gonna
follow?
look into and determine what ownership rights they had. I don't know if it's a realty company that manages a lot of property, but it wasn't on their list, so they were gonna look into it and get back to them. So we can follow up, we can continue to follow up if we don't hear. I think when the complaint came in over the past week or so, that's when, you know, he tried to, because we do have contact with the previous owner.
Yeah.
But now that property has transferred,
Okay.
so now we have not had any discussions, to my knowledge, that we've ever had any contact with the new management company. So
it's in the
that's what we're
building
trying to
and-
establish that relationship now.
okay, so it's in the building inspector's hands right now, not necessarily the Board of Health
The,
currently?
right now, the building inspector is trying to get the information, so, so I think, and again, and I know there are other issues that the Board of Health are trying to deal with, and there's always access issues, you know, if they don't have permission, you know, then they're, you know, they have to go to court, so, to take action, and then they have to justify in court why they're gonna take over a property or take action on a property, so.
I didn't know if there was like.
So I think that was
notice.
the hope was to try to track it down through the owner, the new owner, and make them aware of it and try to see if they can come out here and do something.
Okay,
But, you know, I'll ask the building inspector again tomorrow to try again. And at some point, if we can't get any response, then we'll determine what the next step will be. If it's,
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
make sure you email us the pictures. Just send it to.
Absolutely.
Is it, what's the email?
Selectboard@clintonma.gov.
And Julie, you got my email,
I
right?
do,
Okay.
thank you,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry, select.
Selectboard@clintonma.gov.
Okay.
I can
All right,
circulate
guys,
your.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, review of minutes for May 10th, 2023. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from May 10th, 2023.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda, common victualler license hearing, mobile food vendor Timothy Hoagland Jr., doing business as Hangry Hot Dogs and More. If you could come up to the table, please, introduce yourself.
Thanks for having us. My name's Timothy Hogan.
Take a seat.
sit down.
I own a food truck, and I'm looking to serve the community of Clinton.
Very good. All right, so, where this is a hearing, is there anyone here to speak in favor of this license approval?
I didn't know I was supposed to bring anybody. I could have definitely.
No,
Okay.
it's fine.
Is there anybody here to speak against the license approval? There being none, we'll close that portion of the hearing. Any questions from the board? One piece of information, this permit, the license request will be for the 242 Church Street, the entrance on the park side, the north entrance.
Closest to the town hall. The building inspector had checked it out and said that would be the most, right over here, right at this entrance.
So we're on Church Street?
We're at this, yeah, church, so it's right on the, it's the, if you were walking from the library to the police station, it's the entrance way there.
If you're
And it's
looking at
off to the
Central
side.
Park right
Right
now,
across the street.
it's this very first entrance to your right.
So, church.
So we're going this way.
Yeah,
This
right
way.
on,
Right here.
on Church.
Right in front of the town
Across
hall?
the street, diagonally across the street from the
Park.
town hall entrance, so from the entrance of the park to the first parking space, diagonally across the street right here.
Gotcha.
Like I said, the building inspector had came over and checked it, said there was no egresses, no, it wouldn't be in the way of anything because the sidewalk had ended. Said, had them in the Parks and Recs, have, I've been working close with both of them, so just trying to get my ducks in a row.
So where the entrance way is, it would be to the left-hand side facing it, before the first parking space. So it's not inside the park, it's on the sidewalk there.
Gotcha.
And you had mentioned the hours you'd be seeking were 11 to 7?
Yeah, 11 to 7, unless there was, you know, like I said, I was working close with Parks and Recs. If there, I know they have movie nights. I also know the police officers have block dances. My father actually used to serve hot dogs a long time ago when I was a kid at the block dances. So, just stuff like that. Obviously, I work close with you guys and Parks and Recs to get any permits that I would need eventually in the future. But right now, I'm just looking for the 242 Church Street on the corner of Central Park from 11 to 7.
Any questions from the board?
So with the, sorry, Mr. Chair, does the motion have to have the location in it, or?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And,
And any other areas of interest in doing business would require approval by the select board.
all right.
I was in the process of talking to Joyce with that. Unfortunately, she was sick the other day, so I
Okay.
guess it didn't get through.
So 242?
Yeah, 242 Church
Church
on
Street?
on the corner of Church.
Okay.
242 is actually the Central Park address, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the board approve the application for common victular license from Timothy Hoagland, doing business as Hangry Hot Dogs and More, to operate a mobile food cart at 242 Church Street, specifically the park entrance closest to the town hall entrance.
Yes, sir.
Yep, okay.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. All right, next item on the agenda, John Hayek, Fakes Production LLC, a Clinton film permit request. If you could come up to the table and introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you for having me this evening. My name is John Hayek. I am a young filmmaker from Boylston originally, and I am producing a low-budget independent film in Central Mass this summer, and I'm hoping to call Clinton our home for 5 days of production.
Okay.
Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
if you had to describe the setting without naming a town, what would be the kind of town that the film's set in?
It's very much a sleepy small town, very comforting feel, a place that, there's lots of orange and brown during the fall. In the script, the town is called East Pine, Massachusetts, but very much the kind of place a John Hughes movie would take place. Just, very small town and sleepy.
Without the creepy, yeah, John Hughes got that. What would they? Incel stuff. Gotta go that. Okay,
It's not a
thank you.
horror film, that's good.
Yeah. Any other?
Mr. Chair, I
Sure.
just asked this question to everyone that comes for a permit. You guys got together with our Director of Economic Development and all the different town departments and the whole policy and procedure thing, and, okay. And there's
That's
no-
right.
Okay.
We met up yesterday. We had a wonderful meeting talking about, about where we'll be filming and when. We've also ordered a lot of local businesses already. Everybody on High Street knows. The residents on High Street have also received flyers for our intended schedule.
Okay.
And-
Are there any planned street shutdowns?
We
for
have one street closure we're planning.
Okay.
Again, we would be in Clinton for 5 days, and
Yep.
3 of those days would be exclusively interior at the Strand Theater.
Okay.
The other 2 days, one of them would be primarily interior and would be on the sidewalk outside the Strand.
Okay.
We would not be closing the road for that. It would just be a few B-roll shots in the morning, 7 to 9 a.m. before most businesses open. And the street closure we would be doing on a Monday evening from 10:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. We've been in touch with the police chief, who is very accommodating, and we'll make sure that we have detail that night to close from High and Church to High and Union.
Okay.
So just that one block of High Street, we'd be closing for about 4 hours.
Okay.
Any other
Oh,
questions?
it's sidewalk and street closure.
I know that there's usually a question about the town of Clinton appearing in the credits
Oh, yeah.
at the end of it, so that's usually,
We would be happy to include it.
Perfect. Love it.
any other
All right. Yeah,
questions or concerns? Mr. Duffy, everything?
Obviously, if the town of Clinton is going to be mentioned to be crazy, it would be like, above the banner, one of these will be first.
long as we're in there somewhere.
Starting with how to go for the incident.
Very good. What's the pleasure of the
And I
board?
think, Mr.
Oh,
Chief,
sure.
just to reiterate, with the meeting yesterday with the police chief, with the street closures, they're late at night and they're on a Monday, so they didn't seem concerned that it was gonna be disruptive to the businesses or traffic at that time of day, and there's still a ability to work around that, that's only that section, so the police chief was okay with it.
Excellent.
We've also included our contact information on all flyers we distributed, so any questions, we'll definitely make sure are addressed.
So for our motion, we only have to be concerned with the street closure, right? It's none of our business if they're filming inside the Strand, right?
Private property.
Right, so we don't have to, all right. Okay, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the request from John Hayek of Fakes Production to shut down, to have street closures on July 10th and July 31st. Is that, yeah, street closure, yep, on High Street from Union to Church from the hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.?
July 10th, we would be having the sidewalk work done, so no closures required, but July 31, from 10:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., we would be closing High Street.
Okay, so strike July 10th from the motion, July 31st, first, the street closure as mentioned. Yeah, that's the motion. It's patchwork.
Second.
Any questions? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda, Leah Bella, Summer Downtown Banner Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I am here tonight to get approval on the layout of these banners, street banners to go in various parts of downtown. These banners, there was a program done last summer prior to me coming on board, and those banners were on the length of High Street and also up and down Church Street, or part of Church Street. These banners would go on those locations, and then also with the intention of adding to the footprint of downtown with these banners, namely adding poles on the corner, or the intersection of Main and Water, basically marking Depot Square as one of the gateways into downtown. The poles themselves are on the Main Street length there. So really to add some color and really to announce that you've arrived in downtown, because obviously we have aspirations to keep improving that area. And also to add a series of flags to the sweep behind the museum. So that when you're coming in from the dam and you're coming up to Triangle Park and you take the left, that sweep of 7 poles, that would also sort of usher you into downtown. So the goal is to sort of expand the visual footprint of downtown. The thought process behind these banners is, the one on the far left is what's, you've had already in the past, which is called your evergreen, what we refer to as your evergreen banner with your town, that logo that was created a couple years ago. The other ones are, you'll notice, a variety of, we walked back from the concept of live, work, shop, dine, and instead of actually having that wording, we went with Clinton-specific imagery to communicate that same message, but make it Clinton-specific. And we also put people in silhouette so that they are ageless, they are genderless, they are, could be any ethnicity or race. Really welcoming a big net. You'll also see a variety of languages on here of welcome to speak to the different communities that are not primarily English speaking in town. Again, casting a wider net of welcome, and this is your downtown. That's what I've got. So we are still in the process of clarifying the pricing based off of the number of poles, but more importantly, the installation method. And so we'll have some more clear-cut numbers on that soon.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
did you guys design these yourselves?
No, we worked with a local, Chris Epstein, who works up the street.
Oh, okay.
And we kind of went back and forth, and the colors are all pulled from that original logo, so that they can all, the point is that they can all be mixed and matched,
Yep,
so that they can be moved a couple of times and go up and go down, so that they stay fresh,
yep.
but yet always coordinate, if anyone ever saw that movie, Boomerang from the 80s.
And these would go up when the flags come down at some point after July 4th? Is that the?
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, I don't think we're gonna be ready for 4th of July, but as soon as we can, so they
Well, yeah.
hopefully go up for the end of summer,
Yeah.
be up for the fall,
Yep.
and then come down, and the point is not to have a flag up all the time, because then it becomes white noise.
Mhm.
Have it up for a while, take it down, have a rest period, and then go up with your holiday flags
Like
that
it.
are already, or banners that are already
Yeah, no,
used.
they look slick. I really like it. It's nice.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, these look fantastic. I'm really excited about this. Bring some nice color,
Color.
lead into the holidays, yeah.
Perfect.
Very good. Any other questions? So do you need, does this require a vote, or we?
I think if the board want to vote to support the program and the design, but also if there's going to be expansion into other streets, the board should approve that as well, too.
So, I need you to please approve the expansion for the 7 poles on Main Street near Water Street, and the 6 poles that are on Union back of the museum, please.
So moved.
Second.
Yep.
Just, do you want to discuss?
Second.
Kind of maximum price before we go?
Sure. So the maximum production and installation price that we have right now that we're working on is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000. So just so
To hang these?
to produce them and hang them, because some of the poles on Main Street down by Depot Square don't have brackets. They need to be manufactured and installed. And then the ones on back of the museum need to be replaced because they're old and not in the right location, or they're not the right dimensions.
But then the following year, what would be, I'm assuming we can reuse these?
In general, the sort of opinion is that you should be able to get at minimum 2 to 3 years out of these things,
Okay.
because they're not going to be up year round.
Right, okay,
So it's not a 1 year, it's not a 1 year expenditure.
right.
Yes.
So next year, we would only have to pay for the hanging of these for the next
Yes,
couple of
unless
years?
some storm comes up
Somebody,
and goes.
something get
everything
damaged or
goes
something?
haywire, so.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to come up to the table?
Just real quick.
Jump in.
So Lee has solicited proposals from a number of banner companies, and because there's 3 moving parts: the new equipment for the new brackets to be attached to existing poles, the printing of the banners, and then the hanging of the banners. There's still enough moving parts that we may be able to get that price down meaningfully. But if the board is comfortable with approving a budget for this, in addition to the design, that would just allow us to get them up more quickly, rather than, especially if you're going to the summer and you may be meeting only once a month at times, rather than have to come back to approve a price proposal. If the board is comfortable considering an amount not to exceed $15,000, from either ARPA funds, or from the town meeting warrant article, which we'd have to have discussion with Brian Farragut about, or potentially even the Community Development Fund, then we will be able to expedite that. But we feel we can get a better price, frankly, and so we continue to do that. But we also didn't want, if there were any reservations about the design, we wanted to be able to address those in stream as well.
Could we look at what it would cost to replace the poles that are down on Mechanic Street? Because those are the old sodium halide lighting, right? That's, lighting's outdated. And I don't know if there's a possibility of being able to replace them with the current.
We did look, I did look at that very preliminarily as part of the preparation for the CDBG grant application. You may recall, we ended up applying for Prospect Street, Union, and Walnut Street instead. It's going to be a little bit of money. I think we figured the lights are something like $165,000. No, that can't be right.
Because I think there's like 5 poles.
Yeah, because those are still owned by National Grid, so that's why they weren't converted. So we'd have to buy out from National Grid. The ones on High Street, it was very low price because they were so old and in disrepair, so it didn't cost a lot to buy out. But those there, I think, as Mr. Duffy indicated, he had looked into in the past, and there would be a cost to buy them from the grid.
And yeah, I'd be happy to work up a number along those lines, but we'd have to kind of presumably replacing all the wiring to those lights, so metering, which probably, I mean, those lights are probably on a tariff, Mike? Those lights aren't metered, presumably. Those lights are.
No.
So,
But then if they come down, then we would have to buy the decorative lights to put up, to
Yeah.
put back up again, so. But if you just want to change out the fixture, then we could just put a LED light on the aluminum pole. But-
Yeah.
So however we'd want to do it, you know.
that stretch is part of the, like, build out and the lighting master plan. And as Lee's mentioning, the extension of this banner program, it brings us to basically the boundaries of what we defined as the downtown, going back to, I think, 2015 when we started this whole process. So that's good as well, but it's lubrious as well, but, love to do with more of the visual cues of downtown. It's just a cost impediment, cost barrier. Right?
So the original motion covered the expansion that you laid out. You're asking for also it to cover a cost not to exceed 15,000?
If the board will entertain that,
Yeah.
then we can move more quickly with trying to get this at the best price. But otherwise, we'd be coming back to you at some subsequent meeting
All right.
to request funding.
And where is the 15,000 coming out of? The community economic development, budget or?
It wouldn't come out of my annual budget, it would come out of either the community development fund
Okay.
or in conversation with the facilities director, out of the warrant article that was approved this year, or out of ARPA funding, which hasn't yet been approved, but do you recall that there's a request in my ARPA request, I think, for $100,000 for downtown furnishings, contemplating items like this.
All right. Would it be a good idea, should I include that in the motion? Should we include that in the motion, like where the money's come from, or if we just say 15,000?
The funding source probably should be, because the
Okay.
board would have to approve where it's coming out of, yeah.
All right. So it was out of ARPA, out of a
Community Development Fund.
community development fund, and out of a warrant article?
Yeah, the facilities, beautification of downtown.
Okay.
And Mr. Ward, well, the only one of those that I can commit is the community development fund. If subsequent discussions find that it can be drawn from another source, can the board amend that vote to re-originate the funding?
To do what?
To basically move the funding authorization from one origin account to another.
Yeah.
So let's say it's community development.
Okay. Should we, the only thing I'm thinking, I don't want to drag this out, but should I leave ARPA off of this just because we've kind of been addressing ARPA separately? So maybe if we just approve out of either the warrant article or the community development fund and then revisit the ARPA thing later if we want to use it?
Yeah. In fact, if you want to say community development fund, if I have subsequent discussions with Mr. Farragher,
Okay.
or the board
Then
subsequently
if
approves ARPA
need be,
funding.
you can
Okay.
recode it, reallocate it.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to make a motion to amend my original motion to also add in the expense of this initiative to not exceed $15,000 from the Community Development Fund.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All right, and then any other questions on the initial? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Duffy. The first item you have is the electric vehicle charging stations at Walnut Street and Church Street parking lots.
Yes, I'd like to discuss with you a potential alteration of our plans. We would require your approval. Effectively, you may recall that last year we applied for funding for 2 EV charging stations at the Walnut Street lot and 2 EV charging stations at the Church Street lot.
Sorry. John, you can go.
Yeah.
What a nice guy.
Sorry.
That's all right. So we had prepared applications along that order. Subsequent to our turning over the applications to our consultants, we learned that the National Grid program requires a minimum of 4 charging stations for it to be funded by National Grid. Effectively, the state purchases the equipment and National Grid provides a grant to install the equipment. So we received an award letter awarding us 4 charging stations in each location. That's not what was contemplated, and so I'm coming here to understand your willingness to install 4 at each location. Concerns of this, I think the concern is most acute at the Walnut Street lot, where there are 34 spaces total. This would mean, in excess of 10%. I guess that's probably what, 12% of the spaces would be EV. The Church Street lot, that's 125 spaces. I think that could be absorbed more readily, but we did have a communication with the appropriate state agency. The grant award contract requires that we post those EV stations and that they be restricted to EV cars only. So it's really a matter if we want to say yes to 4 or no thank you no thank you to any at the Walnut Street lot, or both lots, but it's particularly Walnut Street lot that I bring to you tonight for your input.
So,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
No, sorry. So you're saying it was originally 2 and now it's going to be 4
Yes,
at each lot? Okay. 8 total?
yes. But effectively, there are 2 stations, but each station can charge 2 cars.
Okay.
Okay.
Or spaces? 2 spaces.
Where on, do you have a location for Church Street? Like, any,
We talked about putting it, using Oxford Quartz Power, and there is a post at the rear, do you remember where the dumpster used to be?
Mhm.
Not the one that was in the middle of the lot when they pushed against the lot, at the corner of the lot? Basically over there, so kind of near the back corner of the elementary school, there's a little concrete curving that comes around a utility pole. And you can see there's a power drop right there, so it would go in that location. So towards the back half of the public.
and that's where that area is bordering on the pond, that no man's
Exactly,
land.
yeah. And I honestly can't remember, it's actually right there, and I can't remember if we put it on one side or the other, but I don't think it really mattered.
And Phil, this is all from a grant, if we do the 4?
Yeah, it's from 2 grants, one from the state and one from National Grid.
Okay, and it's 100% grant funded, or is it, do we have to pay a portion of it?
It's 100% grant funded.
All right. And I'm just curious, I don't have any reason to be against this, but is there, like, as Director of Economic Development, you see some benefit as having that, like, try to, like, encourage people to, it's just like an extra kind of service for people that visit the downtown that we don't currently have?
Well, presumably, ideally, presumably, because these are type 2 chargers, which are the ones that, they're not the 45-minute chargers. So presumably, the typical users would be people who live downtown or work downtown. Again, frankly, my concern is that it's removing 4 spaces rather than 2 from a commonly used resource.
Okay.
So, wanted to understand if the board had any concerns. Based on one of the board's input for responding to, to accept or kindly decline the grant award.
And would the town be charged, like, once the grant is over, are we in charge of, like, maintenance of the charging stations? If, like, one of them breaks down and they have to get repaired, like, we'd have to, okay. Or if they ever had to be removed at some point in the future, that would be on us too?
Presumably.
Yeah.
Presumably. To be honest, I hadn't heard of these things not functioning optimally until just this week. There was an article in the Globe about the Turnpike Authority removing a bunch of some of the Mass Pike rest stops.
What's the deadline for you to have to give an answer?
It's coming up, like 14 days.
Okay.
What do one of these charging stations cost roughly, without the grant?
I honestly don't know. I knew it one time, Matt, but I don't recall what that number is off the top of my head.
Would they be similar to the style that, the one that's down in the elementary school next to the dumpster and then Parks and Recreation, that
Yeah.
same style?
Yeah, they're all effectively variations on the same idea. It's just the charging up of the interface that may change from cars to cars. There's a couple standard designs, basically. So you choose one.
I mean, even though there might be concerns over the number of parking spaces that would now be dedicated to the charging stations, we've talked about, I mean, even with this banner initiative, right, wanting to invite more people to town, in electric vehicles are extremely common, and that would be another incentive for people to kind of travel out this way. There's plenty of users of that Walnut Street parking lot that I think are abusing it, which we could always talk about the enforcement side of it, but I think, to be inclusive to all types of transportation, and we're in the town of Clinton's not on the hook for anything.
Mr. Chair, I move that are we approving something or authorizing the director to?
Yeah, I guess if you wish to move forward, authorize me to enter into the agreement. I think Mike's signature is required on the award letter. So.
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize the Community and Economic Development Director to enter an agreement for grant funding for 4 EV charging stations at Walnut Street and Church Street parking lots each.
I'll second.
Just one question, so what are those lots set up for right now? Is it 12 hours that the parking restriction? So it would be adequate time for someone who's charging their car,
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I just have one question. If we don't know the answer to this, no big deal, but in your opinion, because we're not monitoring those parking lots constantly, but do you find that they get completely filled up with cars?
I have found that since COVID ended, during COVID, they were filled constantly. And I've noticed, quite frankly, walking the dog at different hours of the day, that they're not 100% where they were consistently 100%,
Okay.
2 years ago.
And
It's very interesting. It's very interesting to me, quite frankly.
and it's 10 spots we're going to be losing, but that's total across both parking?
Yeah, 8 across.
8 across, so four, because one for each charging
Not
station.
losing, but reassigned.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, we could free up a few more percentage points by maybe cracking down on construction companies using it as a staging area
Mhm.
every day.
Okay.
Yep, no, I know the one you're talking about. Yep.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board? Or, excuse me, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Very good. Next item, Business Assistance Program update.
Sure, so I think the board approved that, June 7th? Okay, so I left the meeting, emailed the chamber, notifying that this program had been created. They had worked with us on the outreach and kind of the program design, asking for some assistance. Spoke with Dave Sullivan earlier this week. I expressed that I'm looking for some expertise similar to the expertise we used during the resiliency loan program, somebody with experience in lending and somebody with legal experience, so that we can draft up the correct documents, and somebody with a better expertise than mine to kind of review these applications. That should be put together soon. I spoke with him. He said he would reach out to some people. My hope is that in consult with the other people on this kind of review team, we will finalize an application, determine what kind of information we'll be seeking from respondents. We will advertise the availability of these funds, keep that window open for about 6 weeks, and then close it. We won't be rolling like it was in the past.
Okay.
And the question I want to speak with some other people is, do we kind of establish a formula for award prior to rolling out the program and let people know that, or do we kind of put the application out first, have a defined understanding of the information we'll be seeking, an understanding of how we'll evaluate it, but wait to see what the magnitude of demand is, so that rather than overcommitting funds, we have some discretion to be fair, if that's the right word. Discretion is sometimes scary. So I want to have a discussion with these people to see how they feel we should best proceed. We want to address need fairly, but we really have no idea what the magnitude of requests will be. So that
I
would,
agree with option B.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but we should have a talk with,
Oh, yeah.
with Mike, not that it's procurement as well, but we want to make sure that we're proceeding correctly and supportably. So, yeah, I'd like to do B as well.
Yep.
But let's see if that's supported.
Okay. And what are we looking at tentatively for a rollout? Like, when would we start?
Well, and ideally, if we can meet next week, if we can begin to meet next week,
Yep.
ideally a rollout in the second half of July.
Okay.
And then close the window beginning to middle of September.
Okay.
And then begin reviewing and get those awards out of a month.
All right.
Once we have the information in and we know how much demand there is, we should be able to figure out, make determinations on award fairly quickly. Famous last words, I hope not, but the hard part's going to be figuring out what we're going to ask people and how we're going to evaluate them.
Well, a lot of work went into coming up with the plan, and I'm sure you're going to be busy with implementing it. So just for myself, I'm sure on the board, just want to thank you for taking this on and doing your best to help out the business community with this money.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your input. Not just the kind words, but thank you all for your input on the office's programs and the efforts we are trying to undertake to make Clinton a better place. Okay. And then finally, we also agreed at the last meeting that I would come back to you with a proposal for the Strand Subcommittee. Both composition, I took a stab at a gross outline or broad outline of responsibilities of that committee. So after thinking about it, and this is coming out of my head, not out of conversation with anyone else, but what I'm proposing is a committee of 7 people. 2 members of the board, the select board, 2 members of the committee who would be appointed by this board after a public notice of, solicitation of people willing to serve. 1 person with experience in lending, somebody again who can look at the other side of the ledger coming in who we anticipate coming in as part of this program. And 1 person with an experience in a similar business. That guy drives past my house 3 times.
I've heard that person before. Hire him for the block dance.
I swear he saw me giving a dirty eye from my porch this morning, so he looped around the block and came back. And one member with experience in a similar industry, either a similar forward-facing, customer-oriented business like a restaurant or a bar or a performance space or someone with experience in that field. And then myself. So those would be the 7 members. And then the committee's responsibility would be to collaborate with the owner of the property, who is obviously baked in, has his own interests, but we need to work with him to understand how common interests can be best to be served. And the board would perform the tasks that I described there, that they would basically generate some general guidelines for the use of the money, that they would submit those to you for your approval and review and approval, that they would devise a framework for putting out the notice of availability of funds, and also what the form of the response will be, what we want to see from people, and any other additional information we'll want. That they'll devise simultaneously, they could be done at the same time, guidelines for evaluating those responses, including how we're going to weigh, we're certainly going to be asking for financial statement, we're asking for a business plan, we're going to be asking for a statement of experience and those kinds of things. How we're going to weigh each of those components so that they're appropriately weighted. And then it's review the responses. Presumably over, this won't be a snap, you're done, go ahead, go talk to the Board of Selectmen. I'm sure that there's going to be some back and forth. And then to make a recommendation to your board for the use of funds.
Very good. So with the 7 members, what do you think about it having 2 members with the professional experience in the ownership?
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about, where it's a relatively unique business where, if you can get a couple people that, whether it's past Strand owners or, even if this would be available for somebody who maybe owns a similar business out of Clinton, that can bring that, expertise.
we've actually had an informal conversation with somebody who read the article in Mass Live and reached out to a mutual acquaintance. Somebody who, from what Lee can speak to this better than I can.
Yeah, we had.
If you just come to the table, because it goes radio silent, I think, when we're just sitting here.
Yes, we actually had, there were two people apparently who reached out to a restaurant consultant that we're working with from the Boston area that saw the article and were really excited and interested to help out in any way possible about the Strand, that have experience in theaters and redevelopment and things like that. So we're looking forward to an introduction there to see if they could participate, however useful. So that just happened a couple of hours ago.
You know, if your preference is 7 members, then I would just raise the question of flipping maybe from 1 resident representative and having 2 members who have professional experience, or if the 7 members is something that, you know, you're not stuck on.
There's nothing magical about the numbers. In fact, I mean, I actually don't need to be a member of the committee because I'll be built in as kind of professional staff. I know that I have a feeling that there's going to be some expression of interest from members of the community on this. I think it's very important that we have expertise, but I also think it's very important that we have public input. And I really, the number moved up because I wanted to include a second community member in the committee.
So would you consider adding a second member with professional experience
Yeah, sure.
in that field? And then,
Yep.
to your point, then you'd have your 7-member committee and then not including you.
Yep, absolutely.
If the members of the community that apply would, if some members of the community did have some experience also, you know, like there might be some past owners that might be interested in joining the board. Would that be okay for them to be a resident representative, even though they also, you know, they kind of have some business experience running a theater like that? Would that still be okay being the community representative? Or would they fall into like Matt's point, would they fall into more of the slot of the expertise?
Either or. I mean,
Okay.
these aren't positively bright lines, and ultimately, ultimately the composition of the committee will be up to you. I'm going to beat the bushes to find the expertise we're looking for, but yeah, yes. The answer is
All
yes.
right.
They could
I was
be either.
curious.
They could be either or both.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
So is that a done deal? We're adding, so it's going to be a 8-member board now instead of 7?
We're keeping Phil to professional.
7. It'll be a 7-member board. Phil will not be a member of the board because he's the director of
Okay,
community economic development.
Okay.
So it will still be a 7.
okay.
So
Ex officio, what do we call
Beg your pardon?
it? Ex officio?
Oh, no, I just won't be a member of the board, but I'll be built into every meeting,
Yeah.
just as staff, so.
Yeah, obviously, this board is running under your guidance.
That's right. And ideally, the board will be acting by consensus and unanimity on everything it brings to your board, so my vote's not that important.
So for the, obviously, for the 2 positions there, the professional experience in commercial lending, and then the other 2 with professional experience in ownership in a similar business, those would be, that opportunity would also exist for people outside who don't reside in Clinton, correct?
I'd recommend, especially with the opportunity to grab experiences specific to this industry, it being so small, you know, yeah, it being so small, if someone is willing to help us out, that'd be terrific.
Any other questions?
Should we, do you want to wait until, because we have had brief discussion at the last meeting for who would be the select board representatives. Would you want to wait for us to kind of hash that out, or do you want to?
Yeah, I don't know that this is a proposal that needs a vote per se. I think we're just kind of fleshing out the guidelines, but yeah, I'm just giving you an update on what the thinking is.
Okay.
So, I mean, you guys can have that discussion amongst yourself. If you guys are okay with this, I'll work with Mike or Angela to get an advertisement in the paper. on the social media or wherever it goes nowadays to let people who may be interested, people from the community who may be interested, to give them a contact and what we'd ask for them, presumably a letter of introduction explaining why they're interested in serving.
Should we at least approve the makeup of that committee?
Why not?
Should we approve the makeup of the committee?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
helpful. Yep, absolutely. I think that'd be good to get started, and then we can do the outreach to try to get membership, and then at a subsequent meeting, the board can then appoint all of the members then, all together.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the construction of a subcommittee for the purpose of approving Strand Theater ARPA funds. The board to be consist of 2 select board representatives, 2 resident representatives, 1 appointed member with professional experience in commercial lending, and 2 appointed members with professional experience in ownership or management of a similar business.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'm just, regarding the packet, there's some great stuff on Sterling Street. Are we not talking about that this week, or is that just for informational purposes? Or is that just in my packet? And I
No,
don't have anything on the
I
next
saw
thing
it.
in my packet. I looked again.
I think it
So
was
I-
just an update. It says it on the end, back of this
Okay.
one. It says,
The
says-
assessment was put in for informational, but certainly, absolutely, the board
Yeah.
can bring up if there's any questions while Mr. Duffy's here, or any, that you want to talk about.
I'll,
site readiness, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Right there.
not to hold things up, I'll either bring it up for a future meeting or contact you.
Let's throw it on the next
It was
Mhm.
enlightening. So, thank you.
Okay, great, thank
Very
you.
good, thank you so much. All right, next item, we have the joint meeting with the Finance Committee to discuss ALS Consultant, although it was not intended to be a joint meeting, but we have members from Finance Committee that are here, as well as Chief Lutz. So if you want to,
Oh, man.
do you want to hear?
I think there's some paper towels in the
Do any
bathroom.
members of the Finance Committee want to
Paper
come
towels in
up,
the
or are you just observing?
Don't have a quorum.
No quorum, so they can't.
No, they don't have a quorum, but certainly, they can't vote as a board to do anything, but certainly if individual members want to give their personal opinion, they can do that if the board so entertains.
Does anybody, anyone have anything that they want to share individually? Okay. All right, Chief Lutz.
Julie, Matt,
Hi.
Sean, Ed, congratulations, Matt and Sean, on your new re-election to the board.
Thank you.
So one of the things that was discussed, I wasn't at the meeting, I saw the video, just of the doing the study, on the implementation study, and they asked Angela to look into that. So I sent out an email across the state through all the chiefs. I got a handful. Then I verbalized it to a handful of other ones. Basically the ones that I verbalized it to were more of our local ones. So the ones that returned back to me, some in email, some verbalized, was Gloucester, Fairhaven, Medway, Holden. I had verbalization with Bolton, Sterling. Actually, the city of Lynn responded. Medway responded. I said that. Auburn, I spoke to Auburn, I have an email from Auburn, West Boylston, and Leominster. And the answer to the question, and I have the emails, and everybody's more than welcome. That way nobody thinks I'm not telling the truth. I have all the emails, I have a copy of all the emails for everybody. And there's nobody has done any implementation studies. On the emails that they talk about in here, it's just basically what we've talked about. It's getting the authorization from the Board of Selectmen to go into ALS. The procedures letter that everybody has, and I have copies if anybody wants, that's the procedures. You can't detour from those procedures. That's how you do it. I think the biggest, just in my perception of this whole process, is the financing hurdle. Okay, myself and Captain Chamberlain have been open and honest with every single, we can only give estimates. And the reason for that is the union sitting here, right here today, still does not have a contract with the town to set the rates. So for me to go back to my fire department and say to the guys, how many of you want to become paramedics, without a number, it's not realistic. I can't do that. For me to estimate the overtime is exactly that. It's an estimate. To hire 4 paramedics, I can't tell you what the pay is because it's an estimate. So as far as that goes, nobody's done any studies. Angela, if you got anything other than the ones that I gave you or we discussed, go ahead.
Yeah, so I also sent out to the Mass Municipal Association listserv, and I didn't get any response except for one, and it was a town in this area that's kind of in the same spot as us. They're considering it, weighing the options, but nobody responded with doing, using a consultant, so.
So our medical control director, I've had multiple conversations, he's fully on board. Again, we really can't do a lot until we have a contract. I think we're well aware of that. So just as a couple other list points of interest, Sterling, who provides, probably 95% of our mutual aid in town. Starting July 1st, they're going to go from $300 service charge to us to $350, so it's a 17% increase. Right now, I spoke to West Boylston's chief. They are not a fiscal year, they're a calendar year, so they're not going to change their rates till next January, and they don't know what they're going to do. And Bolton hasn't responded to me, so I don't know if Bolton is a fiscal year or not. But Bolton right now is like $325. So Bolton's $325, Sterling is 300 right now, it's going to go to 350, so it's a 17% increase. So basically, obviously, that's our budget's going to go up, and I believe we got enough money in our budget sitting here today to cover those costs, but it's a 17% increase. I think the last time I came in, I want to say, I forget the actual number, but I want to say we left Clinton 125 times. We're probably in the 150 to 160 times we've already left Clinton. Now, when I mean leave Clinton, I mean leaving Clinton to go to Leominster, Marlborough, the V, University, Memorial, Mutual Aid to Sterling, Lancaster, West Boylston, Berlin, and Bolton. On occasion, Berlin have an issue and they can't get an ambulance, and we'll go actually to the Highland Commons to the urgent care over there and give them a hand. So it's not just leaving Clinton to go to hospitals, it's leaving Clinton for mutual aid. Obviously, we go a ton of times to Lancaster. So one of the things I just think that, I understand, I wholeheartedly understand the financing, and we're working diligently on trying to get that straightened out. But I just think I would ask the board to reconsider spending that money on study. We can do this ourselves. We have all the people. We have Dr. Broach, myself, Chief Hurlbert's offered us. I have, right here in the email, I have people from other departments that we'll gladly give you a hand. Chief Legender in Bolton, Chief Hurlbert, our medical control director, our EMS director, myself. We can do this. I just think there's no, magic ball that we're going to look into to see the funding until we have a contract. And I just think taking that money is a waste. I think we need to put our trust in a department head who's got 37 years of experience in the job to get this thing going. Again, I say it every time, once we have, understand the numbers.
Mr. Chair, Chief Lutz,
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in. I sympathize with what you're saying, because I brought that point up the last time we met, because everyone was saying, well, let's find out what other towns are doing, and we want to do this, hire a consultant. And then I raised the question, well, what if we find out that other towns don't hire a consultant? But it seemed that we still kind of wanted to go that route. I wouldn't personally take it as a slight. I don't want to speak for the finance committee, but I'm relatively new to this, but my take is I know that there is a 9-point plan here. My understanding is that the finance committee is just looking for a little bit more than this. I'm not, if the finance committee seemed to be very adamant that they did want a consultant just to come in and help with putting this together into a nice report, with some, as you said, they're estimates. That's all we can do. But I think part of the back and forth is the finance committee is asking for estimates, and you guys are saying, well, like, we really don't know because there's so many unknowns. And that might be something where a consultant can kind of help in estimating, you know, when you put something like these together, you just want to kind of, you know, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So you just want to have the numbers in the budget, you know, what would be the most expensive implementation possible? And then if it comes in below that, like, you know, then it's great, then that's fine. So I would be reluctant, I don't want to, we kind of met with the finance committee and we agreed on a path. So I wouldn't feel comfortable reverse changing course like right now, especially when the finance committee wasn't able to attend tonight's meeting. If we did change course, I think it would make more sense to do it when they're here so we can talk about it. But my whole thing is, if we want to go the route of having a consultant, I just want it to be done quickly, and I don't want it to drag out for 8 months or 12 months. And I just gotta be honest, I mean, tonight, as far as I understood, I thought tonight was the first meeting where we were gonna get back together with the finance committee and approve the scope of work for the consultant. And, you know, I don't know, my recommendation would be that we still move forward on approving the consultant and the scope of work, and make sure that in here, the only thing I didn't see in here, Mike, is I think in the motion, we were pretty specific about in addition to the scope, or maybe it's in here, if you have the time of 90 days in here, okay, it's in here somewhere, okay. So I sympathize with you, Mike. I think we all want to get moving on this, but
But Ed, with all due respect, without a contract, what is the implementation? What are they going to study? There's no contract to study. Unless they have a crystal ball that we're not aware of, they're going to come to me and they're going to get information from us, and we're going to give them the best information that we can. If there's no contract, there's no way for them to economically make adjustments to this, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't disagree, but how far away are we from completing the agreement on a contract?
Yeah, we have proposals that were on the table. We did that one-year deal just to give them a COLA, but we already have had discussions about ALS, and we have proposals on the table. We are looking to get together again in mid-July, the week of July 10th. We're trying to schedule a date, and we'll be right back discussing that again. So there is information that's out there that the union, you know, seemed open to some of those talks. So, yeah, we don't have a final number, but we do have a range that we've been talking about.
And we can negotiate the ALS terms contingent upon moving into ALS, right? So there's no like harm in saying, if we move forward in ALS, these are gonna be like the terms of it, right? So would it make things easier if we just focused on getting that contract settled first before we started like moving into this
Well,
implementation
one of the
plan?
things that Mr. Jaconski spoke about was a comprehensive implementation plan. I've never been asked for that. I never been asked for that. Matt, you was on the committee. I never got asked for that. That was kind of news to me when I watched the video, a comprehensive implementation plan. I was never asked for that. I was asked for the procedures, and I gave the procedures. And then, when we are asked the questions, we answer them to the best of our ability. We're not trying to cover things or do anything like that. We can only give, estimates on the way until we have a contract. I've said this over and over and over.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And
That's all I'm saying. It's just, I just hate to waste money when it's all said and done. The people that are going to implement it, one of them is sitting right here.
Right.
Question?
Yeah.
So if you know how you were planning to implement it, can you document that?
Sure.
Versus just this
Sure,
9-point?
yeah.
Like if you have an idea and you know that's what people, now you know what people, as we kind of work through this contract, like maybe
Right.
just kind of work, it seems like you have like the framework here, maybe it's just like adding certain, I know there's a range and you can't really commit to it, but maybe it is trying to determine like what exactly would that implementation plan look like. I think
Okay.
people are just trying to, I don't think it's a lack of confidence, I think it's just trying to dot our i's and cross our t's, just
Oh,
because it's so
absolutely. I
much
understand.
money.
I understand.
Yeah.
But just to give you some ideas, town of Bolton, height of a pandemic, started it up and operational 12 months. City of Leominster, up and operational 18 months, completely operational from start to finish. And one of my concerns too is like the ARPA funds, you know, I put in for the money for that car. I hate to see that go to the wayside. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying I hate to see that go to the wayside because that $115,000 that I requested to purchase the fly car with all the equipment to go with that has to go into the budget if that doesn't get approved out of the ARPA funds. And I don't know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell the time frame. You guys know the time frame, I don't, but I hate to lose that. That's why, you know, and you gotta understand, I've been involved with this, yes, throughout a pandemic. For 5.5 years, I've been the chief trying to implement this. And it just seems to just get, the goalposts just seem to get moved further back. That's all I'm saying. We're just basically looking here for, you know, for provide a better service for the town of Clinton, for our residents, and saving lives. That's the bottom line. And it's constantly changing, it's the dynamics are changing, and right now ALS it's here, it's on us, and we're just trying to get operational. And Julie, I understand that I will definitely put something more comprehensive together, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't been asked. You're the first one to ask.
That's a big program. I think it's something that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, also too, I mean, it's budgetary, but also too, I think you said there's, you know, not 100% sure about like the staffing conditions, and I don't know if it's just kind of, like I said, maybe just.
Well, once we go beyond 28, we start to grow out of our station. But I think if we hit 29 with 25 firefighters and then 4 paramedics, we've got 29. I think one is more accommodating than, you know, another 4. So once you get in the 30s, I think we get a little, we're pushing our building to the max. But I think that we can, you know, because you got to understand, there's a few things that have to go into play. For the first 50 calls, you know, your medical control director comes in and talks to your paramedics. In order to get your program going, they have to do 50 calls with another service. So like Sterling would come to Clinton, our paramedics would go with them, and then each call would get logged off, you know. Now, active paramedics, it's a little bit different, but new paramedics coming into the field, they have to do 50 calls. So, you know, basically looking at starting out with, you know, 2 paramedics to a shift, you know. And when I say that, I'm talking about hiring 4, hopefully getting 4 down there that want to become paramedics, is my hope. But like, I can't just walk in or send an email and say, hey, this is what the town's going to pay you, because I don't know that. We can only ask, like Mike said, we're in the process, we've been in the process for a while, and we're trying. It's not like we're not trying, it's just, until those numbers come back, I can't sit here and say, I can say, hey, it's gonna cost this amount of money to hire 4, it's gonna cost this amount of money to train 4 at the station, it's gonna take this long with overtime. Outside of that, it's you know, it's not a guessing game, but, you know.
So if current firefighters agree to go on this path to become paramedics, we can utilize them, but if for whatever reason, no firefighters down there want to make that jump, we would have to hire.
Well, I think we got to get started with 4. Get in the game.
So no matter what, we're gonna have to start with like 4 additional.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Which puts us only at 29.
Sure.
25 firefighters and 4 puts us. So that's really only 1 outside of your building. You know, because our building is set for 28.
Okay, so even with the 4 extra resources, you would still
stay
be
in that building.
okay in that building
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future? Because that was one concern that obviously I think had a lot of merit to it, is
Oh, yeah.
like, if we started the program and all of a sudden we don't have a place to put the people, so at least I know it's tough to convert numbers to like time or whatever, but like, so would you say for like the first like 3 to 5 years of this program, we would be okay in that current building? Okay.
Subject to that we come back with an agreement with the union that's you know, 4 guys would say, yeah, I'd like to become a paramedic, you know.
Right.
And then it just depends on what course they take. There's like an accelerated 1-year course, which is pretty aggressive, giving up your life and your family for a year, but you know. And then some of them are a little longer, up to 18 months to 2 years. But still, even at that point, if you had 4 paramedics going from year 1 to year 3, you're still within, you only have to have 8 hours a day. And then we have to have our backup plan, Sterling, Bolton, and West Boylston.
Sure.
Meaning anytime that we can't provide ALS services outside of the 8 hours a day that we have to by the law, we were able to call Sterling and somebody. So, and we have to have that listed in our plan.
So if some of the people in the fire department decide to become paramedics, right? Say 4 people internally decide to become paramedics, would you still have to then hire 4 firefighters to backfill those positions that for the people that became paramedics?
Just basically when they're on duty, we gotta pay them overtime to go to school.
Okay.
On duty, no, I'm sorry, when they're off duty, we gotta pay them to go to school.
Okay.
That's why when I gave the overtime estimates, again, they were estimates because, you know, basically, if it's gonna be, say, a Monday through Friday, you figure if you're gonna have enough, I just figured one overtime per day.
Right.
Just as a number, to come up with a number that was an estimate, it was an estimate, it was no, you know.
I think what I'm just trying to figure out is no matter what, are we gonna have to hire 4 additional people? Or is the possibility if the current firefighters, if 4 of them decide to become paramedics, we wouldn't have to hire?
No, we'd have to hire 4.
So we have to hire 4 more
Just
people.
because you really realistically, in order to, once you get the program up and running 24/7,
Yeah.
you're gonna need 8 paramedics, because you have to, now you only have that pool of 8 to cover all those shifts all the way along. Meaning a firefighter can't take and cover that shift, you know. And with 8, once you get down to the point where, it's all right for a paramedic to take the call by himself, they don't need to run 2 together. Now you've got 8 shifts, you've got a lot of guys to kind of help out and cover it. It's just the biggest time is obviously the summer months during vacation. That's the biggest issue.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is it more advantageous to hire like 4 new paramedics, like had been through school, or is that like the primary goal?
That's the primary goal, to get the program rolling right along, yes. To start it out, yes. And then one of the other things that was brought up in the last meeting was they talked about per diems. So one of the reasons today we can't go per diems is under civil service, I can't call for a per diem list. So civil service doesn't allow per diems. So that's one of the reasons,
Can
Sure.
we just go, so, Mr. Konski put together a draft of
Yeah.
different questions there.
Yeah.
So, could we just go through them, and if there are any that need more research, then we can
Yeah.
focus on those. If they're, to your point on the per diem one, that was one of the questions that's in there. If the question that was in there, if that's something we can answer and knock off, then, so with the, so creating an ALS department with the Clinton Fire Department, independent of but coordinated within the existing firefighting EMS structure.
We're one department, I don't know how you put another department in there. One of the other things is, obviously, right now, it's the hiring is just lengthy, and we need firefighters. We're rolling up to these houses, and, we got 5 firefighters doing the job. I know we're a small town, and I think, I'll say it, our firefighters do a tremendous job with the amount of staff that they have when they go to these calls. But, having an extra 4 firefighters to help us on the street, and not even only that, but to have a paramedic there that's part of your team, so that if something happens to you, you're gonna get the best care by one of your own partners. So, I'm not saying I'm anti just paramedics, not firefighters, but I think they should be firefighters.
How about the option of contracting for paramedics?
No, I've never heard of it. And the reason being is, I'll give you some examples. I want to say Vital Ambulance Service was contracted, and they set at Clinton Hospital, and they did IFTs, interfacility transfers. So they take one from Clinton to Leominster. So they were not available very much. And then they realized that they were paying their staff to sit there all day, and if they didn't have an IFT, they were losing money. We had an agreement with them, same thing. I forget the actual number, but we'll say it was $300. Each call, we would pay them. I think it was actually less than that, because it was quite a few years ago. So then you had another one that was MedStar. MedStar is in the city of Leominster. And Leominster is crazy. I mean, I'm not sure the number, but I want to say it's upwards of 9,000 medicals a year. So MedStar couldn't keep up. They just couldn't staff it. So that's why Chief Sidlow decided, hey, we gotta do something. We're giving like 25% of our service, because MedStat, same thing. They're doing IFTs, because that's where the money is, into facility transfers. So they're doing transfers, MedStat 25, U of L, no, you know, and they're not available. So then he decided, you know what, they're available a lot less than they used to be, and because there's no money in it. So, to answer your question, I don't see it. The ones that have been around, they're gone, you know.
All right, and then, this is a side question.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was mentioned today about possibly there being an urgent care or a minute clinic.
Yeah.
If somebody goes to that clinic and it's determined that they need to be rushed to a hospital, does that call have to come to the town of Clinton, or is that?
Yeah, it's in our jurisdiction. So if somebody's having chest pains, they're not gonna wait a half an hour for an ambulance to come out of Worcester. We're gonna transfer them to whatever facility they wanna go to, whether it be St. Vincent's, Memorial, University, Leominster, Clinton.
So
So-
right now it would be the same thing where we'd have to call Sterling would have to come, so we're paying, okay.
And that being said, I wanna say it's Southborough or Northborough, I'm not sure exactly, but one of them, they put them in over there, and they told me they're there every day, every single day. Now, that being said, we have a minute clinic, and we go down there, but very rarely, we don't go down there much. But the urgent care is different. The urgent care is more, you know, you can get a head CT, you can get a set of stitches in there. There's a little bit different care than a minute clinic. So the answer is, we will be going there, we'll probably be going there quite a bit, you know.
I just have a couple quick questions about this proposal, and I think one from Mr. Jakonski's, his recommendations here. Does anyone know the bullet point here that says creating an ALS department within the Clinton Fire Department, independent of but coordinated within the existing firefighting EMS structure? Can anyone take a stab at like just what is that like getting at, or is like the,
I'm not sure. I mean, so you have the ambulance enterprise fund. So the ambulance enterprise fund, and then you have the fire department budget. So basically just going on and say, so this is the way it was explained to me. So like if the rubbish ended up having, they didn't have enough money, they would raise the rates. They'd raise the rates, they'd raise the trash standards. Well, that's the same with us. So annually, I get a letter from Comstar. Comstar is our billing service. So what they send me is they say, Chief, here's the rates across the state average. Here's where you are. Would you like to go to average? Or you can go above. I can set them above. The thing you have to understand is your big carriers, your Blue Cross, your Blue Shield, all those, they pay the face value. But 70%, roughly 70% are Medicare and Medicaid. Those are our elderly people, okay? So that rate, even if it goes up, it'll still go up with the state and the government a little bit, but not to that extent. They're gonna cover a little bit more. But you're gonna get on the Blue Cross, Blue Shield, the Tufts, and all the big ones, you're gonna get, if you go up, whatever, $200, you're gonna get that. So what I'm saying is your income can definitely be raised on that also.
yeah, so I would just, if we do move forward with this request, I'd request that we just strike that particular bullet point, because it just seems like it's leading the study a little bit. If the finance committee is interested in a consultant coming in, like, let's let the consultant work with the fire chief and come up with a plan that makes sense. And if they find out that there is, you know, having it be independent but not coordinated, if that's something that they discover that makes the most sense. But I just feel like having it in there is giving them an indication that like that's the direction we want to go. And I don't think that everyone is, unless I'm speaking out of turn, I don't think everyone is in agreement that that's the way that we want to do this unless.
And I don't want to speak for Mr. Jakonski, but I think what he was trying to get at is there a model where the paramedic service would be part of the fire department and under the chief, you know, jurisdiction, but they would be just paramedics. So they would be just running, they could be a different schedule, they wouldn't be firefighters, they don't necessarily have to be on the 24-hour shifts, they would just be servicing the medical calls. So is there a model out there where you would see that, and does that work? I don't know. I think that's what he was trying to get at with some of
Okay.
those questions.
But, and I don't want to speak, you're right here, so you can speak, that doesn't sound like something that you think, it
No,
sounds like
no.
everything you've said is, you've consistently said you would like the paramedics to also be firefighters.
But that being said also, in the contract, it's spelled out, after the 24th firefighter. So we're supposed to have 25. I haven't seen it yet, because I'm just getting dizzy hiring. So that being said, after the 24th, I can set their schedule. It's written right in the contract, I can set their schedule. So I can set it to 24 hours, I can set it to whatever I want to set it to.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Just so, we do have I have the authority to set the schedule.
yeah, I don't want to frustrate you, Mike, but I think there is a middle ground here where we can satisfy some of the needs of the finance committee, but still make sure that we don't drag this thing out. But I would just recommend to the select board, if we do move forward today with approving the scope of this consultation, I think I would recommend that we strike that particular bullet point, because I don't see, why would we move forward on an implementation process that the fire chief is like completely opposed to? He's gonna be the one ultimately implementing it and overseeing it, and if he thinks that the best option for this, the success of this program, is for the paramedics to also be firefighters, I really don't know why any of us would, it's just not our world, so that.
Mr. Chair. Well, then, just to make that argument then, so that leads into what the chief's suggesting. And what are the consultants going to tell us if the chief's going to have veto power?
Say that again?
If the chief has veto power, then what are the consultants, are they bringing a ton of value?
I think, I don't want to speak for the finance committee, but I think they just want to see this turned into like, maybe like a 10 or 15 page report with a little more meat in it
I
and
would
some
love that
numbers.
too.
Right. So I think that's all. I think there's a path forward here where we just take the fire chief's recommendations for an implementation plan and just make it a little bit more robust and a little bit more detailed. But at the same time, I just don't want I don't want anything in this implementation plan that is directly opposite of what he thinks would be the best chance for success for the program, that's all.
Mr. Chair, then is there a chance that the chief and his people could take a crack at this? He's
Absolutely,
saying-
100%, absolutely.
Especially if we're waiting on a contract we're probably not getting for a couple months.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that we could, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, we could approve moving forward with this consultation study, right, just to get the ball rolling on it. But then we could have another joint meeting with the finance committee and discuss again the possibility of just handling this report internally between either the assistant town administrator, human resources, the fire chief, however we want that team to be put together. And if we come to an agreement that, okay, yeah, we think we can do this report internally, then we'll just cancel the request for the consultant. If the finance committee doubles down and says, no, we really want an outside set of eyes looking at this, then we'll move forward with the consultant.
I mean, could we look for an RFP where, and then as, say, Chief Lutz and his team is putting together the comprehensive implementation plan, if anybody had responded back, then we would obviously have to approve the contract or the bid for the study. Could we just at that point decline?
Well, at any point, if you go out for an RFP, you can reject the proposals anytime you want. So you're just asking people to give you proposals, what their price would be, what their scope would be, how they would go about doing it. So that I agree, you can go forward on that process, and you can pull that back whenever you want. But I don't know how long it'll take us to get to the final contract, but I think at the end of the day, it's still gonna be working with estimates. So if we have a range or an estimate or a number that we feel comfortable with, there's at least ability to use that number to get prices. I don't think anyone's looking for an exact number budget that we're gonna hold everyone to, but I think it's trying to say, what's the context of this for startup, for 3-year full implementation, for 5 years once it's up and running? What are we gonna be buying?
Right.
What are we signing up for?
Sure.
Is it 500,000, is it $2 million? I think that's what the finance committee is trying to get their hands around, is what are we agreeing to that it's gonna come back and hit us 3, 4, 5 years from now? That's all.
But that
And it's
being-
not gonna hold you to the number, but at least have a framework, there has to be a little bit of a world there that we can work with it.
But that being said, there's no crystal ball for us to look into to see, year 3, 4, and 5, what the COLAs are gonna be. So again, it's still all gonna, like Mike said, it's still all gonna be estimates.
It is.
There's no humanly possible way, there's no human possible way, anybody can come in here and tell us what that's gonna cost. It's not possible.
No,
It's
but I mean,
impossible.
But I think, but I agree, but I think COLAs are gonna be negligible impact.
Absolutely, I
I don't
agree.
think that's gonna drive the
I agree.
decision here.
Right.
So I think it's gonna be, is it 4 people, 8 people, 12 people? What are their shift schedule? What's equipment that's needed? I think those are the big numbers. I don't think it's looking at, well, is the stipend gonna be 7,000 or 8,000? Is the COLA gonna be 2% or 1%? Those numbers, we can always be tweaked. It's what's the bigger picture costs, I think, is what they're looking for.
And in fairness, I mean, every budget, there's unknowns. And the
Right.
further down the road you go,
It's
the more
even-
the
even
unknowns are.
worse.
So that's
Yeah.
no different. I mean,
Absolutely.
my private sector's no different. You're always doing quotes as best you can, trying to forecast what things are gonna be. So I think, if you have a concern that you are gonna be tethered to some number and then 3 years down the road getting beat up because you said it's only gonna cost X and it ends up costing Y, I don't think anyone is going to, I think everyone understands that if you're asking for information out 3-5 years, it's not gonna be as reliable as the information that you're asking for like year 1 or 2.
Right.
So I think that's I think everyone understands.
Right, exactly. If you're saying it's gonna be $1 million and it comes at 1.1 million, that's workable. But if you
Yeah.
say it's gonna be 500,000 and it comes in at 2 million,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to get a handle on here.
Sure.
That's what we're trying to figure out,
Yeah, I mean, that's just I would be, personally, I would be fine with moving forward with this scope of work proposal, with that one bullet point stricken.
Two bullet points.
Which other one do you want to
The
get?
per diem one, because he had said because they're civil service, they can't utilize per diem.
So-
But again, that shouldn't limit us, because again, there's ability to negotiate things. So that shouldn't be limited because of today's circumstance. We're looking to, this is the future of the town, so we
Right.
can't look just in today's realm. So
Okay.
if per diem is a helpful tool, but it's not viable today, but we can negotiate something, then at least that should be known. If it's something that doesn't work and it's not doable, then obviously that's a different story. But if it's a great tool, but the only issue is civil service, well, that's something we can talk about,
Okay, so leave that one in, but I do kind of think we should take the one out about the whole independent of but coordinated within. I think we should just take that. That'd be my recommendation. If we move forward with this scope of work, I just would pull that one out. I think there's plenty of other Mike's still getting 90% of what he was looking for out of the scope of this consultant work. And does anyone else?
What do you think?
That's up to the board. I mean, I
Don't
think.
put him on the spot.
But-
I mean,
No.
that was a great point. I mean, he enlightened me, and that makes sense, so
Yeah.
I'm asking for input.
No, no.
And I think that was, and again, I don't want to be speaking for Mike Chukonsky, but I think that was a factor
Okay.
that was important to him, because there was the housing component. So could you do 8-hour shift where they don't have to stay overnight? Can it be, if civil service is an issue, can it be independent of civil service? Can it be just paramedics? And now a firefighter paramedic may get a X salary, but if it's only paramedic EMT, is that a different salary? So I think that was, again, that's just what I'm getting from public meetings. I haven't talked,
Right.
intimately with Mike about it, but I think that's what his thought was. Is there a way to do this? Everyone's in
Okay.
favor of the service and helping provide the service to the town, but is there only one model out there to do it with firefighter, paramedic, firefighter, the way we're doing it right now? Is that the only way to do it, or are there other ways to do it? That's all that they were looking at,
Okay, so how about if we just change it to the option of creating a ALS department.
Right, no, absolutely. I
Okay.
think it was just gonna be an option. I think it
Yeah.
was just
Well,
gonna be, all right, do it the way we have it now.
I just
This
want to make
option
sure.
and that
Well,
option.
because, the only reason I'm asking, because there are other bullet points where he specifically does say the option of this, the option
Yeah.
of that, and that one
Yep.
doesn't have it.
Yep.
In the contracting services, Mike, you said in your
It doesn't
experience.
work.
Doesn't work, you haven't heard of it.
Doesn't work.
So, I mean, we can keep it in there, but I just don't want, have the consultant look at it, and if this is something that just doesn't exist, then I don't want them spending like 3 weeks trying to develop something if like no other fire department like actually uses that model.
No, and I think you're right. I think they'll find that out. I mean,
Yeah.
it does exist. We were doing it too. If it's not practical in order to maintain full-time service.
Right.
Then that's a different story. So that's what they will determine.
Oh,
They'll
so-
say, all right, yeah, you can contract, but you're only going to cover 5 hours a day. Well, so then you got to decide whether you want to do it or not, so.
Yeah, so that's a good point, though. That is essentially what we're doing now, right? We're contracting the service.
Yeah,
for
we
Sterling.
we're
No, we
contracting with mutual aid with other
Correct.
towns right now.
Yeah.
That's how we're doing it. We were contracting, as the chief mentioned, with Vital Ambulance.
Okay.
So we were doing a per run call with them, and then they dropped off because they weren't able to provide
enough
the
money.
service anymore.
Okay.
So it is a doable thing. It's just not practical because we're not getting enough volume, so.
Okay. All right, fine. We can leave the stuff in here, but I just, if we can just change that one bullet point to an option to creating the ALS department. What I just don't want to do is just stagnate on this at all. I'd rather just approve the scope of this, was RFP? Is that what this is?
Right.
Okay, so my recommendation, or what I'd be in favor for, and I'll probably make a motion on it in a second, but I just want to kind of talk about it for another minute, is I would be in favor of just approving this scope of work for the RFP, but asking the finance committee to get together one more time and see if there is an option to just conduct this report, study, whatever we want to call it, internally with our own resources. That would be my preference. I think that we should do it that way, but if the finance committee still feels strongly that they want to continue down this path with the consultant, then we'll at least already have had 2 or 3 weeks of the ball already rolling on that. We won't lose any time.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to see Chief Lutz and his group allocate their time and resources to this, and then to come back with, well, let's just go forward with the study, so it's,
Well, I wouldn't ask them to do any work until we're in agreement with the finance committee that they're okay with that approach. So we could get together at next meeting, we can get the ball rolling on this, on getting this RFP out there. And then we can meet with the finance committee and we can just say, hey, we just want to revisit the possibility of conducting this study, this implementation plan internally. And if they're open to doing that, if they're okay with doing that, then we would ask Chief Lutz and the fire department, and we'd put a little team together. We could decide who's going to be on it, and we could get clearer expectations from finance committee on what they would want to see out of the report, and at least that way we won't lose any time. And if they agree to it, then we can just cancel the RFP right then and there. So
is that fair?
That's fair.
You want to make,
yeah, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the scope of work for the consultant for the implementation plan for ALS, with the addition of adding the option for creating a ALS plan, whatever that bullet has. So with that exception, I approve this scope of work for the RFP for a consultant for the implementation plan of ALS.
I'll second.
any further discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we'll get the,
Now, is fire prevention discussed tonight, Ed?
Yes, it is under new and old business, I believe.
Possible to say some little thing about not getting together tonight, but something follows up. We didn't know we were supposed to be here tonight until we sit down and go over this.
Oh, okay.
We're taking all the blame for this, I'm not showing up. We didn't know we were supposed to be here for
apologize. I only go off of what the,
There's three of us here right now, but the rest of them, I'm sure we're here, we wanna get this thing going.
Okay.
We wanna stop this thing.
well, yeah, I mean, we can get together next week if we want to. I mean, it's,
Well, we'll get together, I'm sure we'll get this before then, it doesn't have to be a selectmen's tonight. It can be
Sure.
anything.
yeah,
We
I'm,
can sit down and get this going.
But I think with this vote of the board, it is moving forward now. I think they are going forward with issuing this proposal, and then, if, you know, whatever the boards decide to get together, just discuss that next step, this will already be in process
We're
already.
also waiting for Mike to come along, I think, or we're gonna wait for him before we say okay, before he starts his plan to show us, now, you know yourself, Mike, I think what you're trying to say, what material we need, what labor we need, housing. I just found out that maybe 6 or 7, 8 years down the road, we still didn't accommodate everybody. I didn't know that. I thought that was gonna be a costly item for us. To me, I'm not speaking for anybody else.
sure. Well, I mean,
We're kicking the can down the road.
That's where I feel like if we have things in writing, where everyone can read it and reference it and
I'm sorry.
hone in on it.
no, that's okay. But I mean, this is what, I don't want to, I know this is weird, you guys are in the,
Yeah.
used to you guys sitting here, but, and I understand something happened, but, I mean, this is ultimately, you guys were in favor of this course of action, though, right? That was my understanding from last time you were here.
Right.
Okay.
I also thought the Selectboard was. Now we're taking the blame for holding this thing up. If the
Uh-huh.
Selectboard feels we want to go the way you want to do it, just give us the dollars and cents. And then we'll say, yeah, we agree with that price or no.
Well, so something you just have to keep in mind is, so up until the election last Monday, we didn't know how the schedule was gonna go and who was gonna be on this committee, number one, right? Number two, Monday was a holiday, so then we have to get the agenda posted last Thursday, right? So by the time, so we put it on there as a placeholder, so until we could reach out, because I think you had mentioned you had reached out to the chair of the finance committee, and then you heard back yesterday. So it was more of a placeholder, but everything that was provided to the select board at our last joint meeting with Mr. Jakonski's draft, that's what we've been doing. I don't think there's any blame being placed on the finance committee from what I'm hearing. So I don't want that to be the perception, because I don't think that's the, and I'm not gonna speak for the board, I just don't think that's the intent or the reality of it.
I apologize, too, I'm speaking for myself.
No,
It's all good, no, it's all good.
I don't think there's, I'm certainly, my intention isn't to blame anyone. I think it's just different opinions on how, I'm not speaking for my board either, but me personally, I think we could come to like a report working on this internally. I wasn't really that much sold on the idea of hiring a consultant, but that's the way government works. You have to work with other boards, you have to work with other people that want things that you don't, so I'm willing to go that route if that ultimately will get us the support of the finance committee, because this is a huge initiative, and it's not gonna go well if one board is in favor of one course of action and another board is completely opposed to that course of action. I'd rather do kind of meet something, you know, like everything else in life. You meet in the middle and nobody's happy, but at least you move forward. So I'm not trying to place blame on anybody.
All right, did the vote happen? I forget. No vote, yeah. All right, so
There was a motion and a second.
second, all in favor? Aye. All right, so then we can coordinate with the finance committee on when they can get together next. And then we can present the idea of having the chief and his team put something together.
Right.
See what their thoughts are on it, and then at the same time, the RFP's moving forward.
And if anything else, we have a nice, whoever put this together, I think it captures what we discussed at the last meeting, and now we have kind of something to work off of. So when we do get together with the finance committee, we can kind of discuss this and talk about the possibilities of just handling this internally or going outside to a consultant.
All right, so, to Chief's question, so the fire safety inspection discussion, I would recommend that we just wait until we have FinCom with us to discuss the inspector position and the funding.
I mean, yeah, we can, we can. I'm just more, I mean, I feel like when Chief Lutz was here talking about his budget proposal, and he did have that at the bottom of it, and he just seemed very adamant that we're at a point right now where if we hired even, I think we even said if we hired 2 safety inspectors, they would be busy 40 hours a week, like nonstop.
Nonstop.
Right.
Start at A and end at Z, and go right back to A.
Right, so I'd just like to, I don't know, like, you know, I don't know, like, what happened there, or like, what was asked for, or like, what wasn't approved, or whatever, but I just, if we are talking about doing a special town meeting to approve this, the ALS stuff, so maybe it would be a good opportunity to also revisit the need for additional fire safety inspectors.
So let's put that on, when we do get together, we can
Okay.
have that item on that agenda, and then we can, everyone can be in the room as we
That's
discuss.
fine. Yep.
All right, and so that answers that question.
Good.
All right, thank you very much. Next, John Bonavist?
Yes.
John Bonavist from Honeywell, Clinton Energy Performance Project. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm John Bobovitz with Honeywell. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time. So I just want to walk through a briefing, and Michael and panelists here, feel free to interject anytime, please. But you know, ultimately, we have been spending quite a bit of time over the last year plus looking at the potential for an energy project for your town and school building. Within that, I'm sorry.
That's all right, it's all good.
We work with other towns, we've done a lot in the state, of going through buildings, right, coming up with ways to save energy, to save taxpayer dollars, to improve things, you know, pre-pandemic, obviously, in the pandemic, the post-pandemic world with air quality as well, but how we can put the most resources to bear to help you to get to capital needs that typically are hard to fund in a budget program. And words that I'll use a lot is it's very comprehensive and collaborative with our customers. You know, we form a team together as we go through the processes. And I think we're at a point now of just wanting to present, you know, kind of where the findings have been and see what the next steps that make sense. And again, this is all with no commitment from the town. But to walk through these items, the reasons why we do this within the project benefits are focused on how can you reduce your energy load, or right, drive energy efficiency so you can spend less money on energy. You're obviously helping the environment and doing things of that nature, but it's a way that you can put money back into funding other things. This program is through the MGL, I'll get to that momentarily, but it's a state statute that allows you to use that energy savings to then fund the actual project, including debt service as well. So in theory, it's a taxpayer neutral program, which obviously is a big win. And these take a lot of time to put together, to work through, to everyone understand the concepts and the right milestones and how to approach things on a go forward, so it makes sense. Within that as well, I mentioned, you know, through the pandemic and whatnot, there's a lot that we do to help improve indoor air quality. So with your schools, and kind of I should pause for a second and mention, you know, clearly with the middle school going through the MSBA program, anything like that would not be part of what we would look to do, right? In the event that didn't go forward and you needed to remedy that building to a degree, it's a different story, and we could also contemplate work there. And Michael's been very helpful with all, you know, that diligence and whatnot, and also providing to me and my team all the energy utility costs and whatnot, so we can analyze information and start to understand, you know, the true, you know, Clinton energy profile and how we might be able to help that. When we look at these programs, again, we look comprehensively, so it's all buildings around all potential items to implement to save energy. So it can be things as basic as lighting, which I know there's been a fair amount done already, things with boilers, HVAC work, building envelope, and even renewable energy as well. If you were going to contemplate any kind of a solar type project, they can all be, in theory, put inside one large program like this, and all managed, you know, to the end from one company through one project manager, make the process very efficient for you. When we do this, we talk a lot about master planning, all the things that towns are already doing with green communities, working with with key personnel, including besides Michael and Angela, with Brian, your director of facilities as well. We met with the school superintendent Meyer as well to discuss some school findings, but ultimately to put things together where the team is starting to understand the potential and how we can best, again, meet needs, understand what you've done already, what's completed, what programs you're looking at, and how we can layer all things together to contemplate not just energy and economics, but also greenhouse gas reductions and all things tied to the environment. Let me pause for a second there. Any questions off what I've kind of began with?
Just that one question. Have you talked with our facilities manager? Is Brian, what are his thoughts on this? Is he generally in favor of it? Or?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's going to come down to what the project will be.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of, as John indicated, they've done some preliminary work. This here is just the next step, and I don't mean to cut short John's presentation, but the next step would be looking to do an RFQ and go out to actually hire a firm that will do an investment grade audit to come up with the project. So what this is essentially looking to do, the statute allows, and it's very heavily regulated by Department of Energy, is to identify projects that you can upgrade or repair that will save electricity. So if you're currently paying this much for your electric bill, and they can come in and do upgrades that will bring your electric bill down to here, this difference of this money will pay for the borrowing to get all that work done. And what the company would do then is, if your savings only goes to here, but they guaranteed here, then they will be on the hook to cover our bond payment for that shortfall. So that's what they're buying into. They would do all the project review, they would do the construction, they would do the management, but then they have to ensure that we're able to cover our borrowing costs.
So the next step would just be approving the money for this study?
Yeah, what the next step would be is to go out to RFQ.
Sure.
And then we would then hire a company that would come in to do that audit. So then at that point, we can determine whether it's a project or not. They've done some preliminary work where they sent some engineers that worked with Brian Farragher and looked at our electric bills and found that there is some potential here. We've got some old buildings, we have some good potential. But they'll come in and they'll do almost like we're doing on the school project. It's, they did this little kind of schematic, but now they have to do an in-depth analysis to come up with the design. So that's what they would do. They did a high level saying, yeah, we think there's a lot of projects here, but until we get in and spend more hours, because they're not getting paid to do this right now. So until they get selected, and then they will put their team in to come up with a detailed, definitive program and exact numbers, then we can decide at that point whether it's good to go forward or not, whether it's worth it or not worth it. So, and John has done a lot of work on Honeywell's behalf to introduce the concept to us.
Sure.
But when we go out to proposal, they're going to submit, but they aren't guaranteed that they'll be the one that'll be selected.
And what's the approximate price tag for this next more in-depth study?
So no, it's a good point to maybe back up from. So right now, it's been a lot of mutual discovery.
Sure.
It's been Honeywell at risk to bring Michael and team kind of up to speed of how we approach things, and again, learn all the intimate things that we need to know about the buildings and what's been done, and really for us to try to get an idea to your question of what a project size, could be per se.
Yeah.
So the next steps, though, I think, from what Michael mentioned, we did some benchmarking analysis, things that inform both of us, as a company and as a potential customer and as a municipality, that yes, it would make sense to go forward and do what's called, under Mass General Law, actually put out a procurement, right, which is a request for qualifications typically that are done.
Yeah. And
it follows the Department of Energy Resources actual prescripted model that most communities use. You can amend it if you would like, but no one that I've worked with does. They tend to use what's tried and true. To all that point, though, everything that we've done is at risk, and there's no commitment at all from Clinton until if you put this RFQ on the street, and as Michael said, Honeywell and other competitors of mine would gladly come here for the meetings, and they would provide proposal books back. And then the Clinton team would go through and rate, and come up with who they might want to sit down and interview with, and ultimately come up with a selection of whatever were called energy service companies, or ESCOs for acronym, you'd want to work with. At that point, you still haven't committed to anything yet. There's what's called an investment grade audit process, which is a heavy engineering study that goes through all buildings. It's very well documented. And when we have all that information with energy savings opportunities and potential items that you want to get done, then we sit down and we kind of layer in the economic components of it. So it comes down to, there could be multiple scenarios of what a project could look like, and that's where you have full control of what you want to include or exclude, how large or small it is, of what buildings get done and what work specifically gets done. And we work together, obviously, to come up with what we feel the sweet spot is for all that, and then how, at that point, it reaches a final agreement. So during that point of the audit, that would be the first point, and you would know well before that, of any commitment from what we call like an audit fee or break fee, so to speak, that would come into play.
So you guys really don't have an idea of how much it will cost yet, and this next step is doing the work to find out, and then they'll come back to us and say, all right, if we move forward, it's gonna cost, we think it's gonna cost X amount.
Exactly, yeah, and that would be the overall project. The audit, again, will be part of that process that's on Honeywell. The only thing will come into play is if they come forward and they said, here's a great project, we're gonna save you all kinds of money, all the numbers work, we're gonna do all this wonderful work, and we decide, yeah, we're good, we'll do it ourselves, or we'll do it in the future, then we may have to pay for their time of doing all that engineering work for free. But up until then, we're just working together to come up with, all right, is it gonna be 2 million, 4 million, or whatever, so.
And just to maybe clarify Michael's point, when every company like myself or Honeywell, responds within the DOER model, there is what's called a markup structure table. So you get overhead and profit numbers from every company against every type of work we call energy conservation measures. So you're getting fiduciary numbers that we're held to, and each company submits their own, right? Within that, there is also a break fee percentage. So my point is, there's no mystery at the end of it of what a break fee would be. You would know before you selected somebody what that break fee potentially would be. Okay.
I'll accept the motion if we want to.
Yeah, is it worth it? Do we have any idea what that break fee might be? Like, we talking 5,000, 50,000?
John would know a little bit.
Yeah, it's gonna vary. Honestly, you might have someone who has 0,
okay,
and you might have one as high, depending on square footage, that could be, a high number would be 100,000. I would say probably more in the middle of that, probably, for $30,000 to $50,000 kind of range.
okay.
Now, I have to disclaim that.
Yeah.
That would be if you went through that whole IGA process, the audit process.
Yes.
And then decided not to go forward,
Yep.
and you had to write a check to the company that you worked with.
Yeah.
If you actually go forward with the project, all the design time, engineering time, is way more than the break fee. So
Right.
that still gets rolled into the actual full project, but that's only if you go through with the full project.
Right, okay.
So tonight, hypothetically, we could move forward with the initial part of that process, and then as, things start winding down, then we would have a better idea of what numbers we would be looking at. And then to the point, your point on the break fee, that would only be if we chose to move forward with that next step. So essentially, we can move this to get a better ballpark and then make a determination whether we want to move forward or not. If we don't move forward with it, then there's no financial commitment to it. Only if we move forward, then you put in the work to do the audit, and we say, well, we're not going to move forward with the projects. Now we're paying you for
Exactly, that's
the audit.
the only point. Yep.
So
Okay, so this step, if we approve this and they come back with numbers, if we say, nah, we don't think we want to do it, we don't have to worry about a break fee. But if we say, yes, we're interested, and then we take the next step, and then if we say, at that point, we don't want to move forward, we change our mind, then we have to pay the break fee.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And if they come back and say the project isn't strong enough to be funded, I don't think we're on the
You're
hook for
correct.
that either, right?
If that were the case, then there's no break fee.
Right, then,
Right.
that, yeah. So it's only if they come back and say, we have a great project, and we just say, yeah,
Okay.
we're good, yeah.
No,
so.
understood.
Now, I like all the at-risk discussions and break fee discussions. The intent is to find value and to actually say, hey, this is a heck of a good idea, and the state statute allows for that. And not to get too deep in it, but Honeywell's done a lot of work in the state. We've been with Worcester, with Boston, with City of Malden for multiple phases, which, we'll get into that at the right times, but ultimately, this is a tried and true program. Not just Honeywell, it's not our invention, right? It's the state's model, so competitors are also good, so I will.
And you guys are in the automation world too, right, Honeywell?
We are, that's a big part of the company now. I normally would not mention that here, since you brought it up though. When we work with customers like this on these energy projects, I'm in, again, the energy team. So when we discuss technology, we talk about things that are truly vendor neutral. So Honeywell owns what's called Niagara Tritium, which, do you understand control, since you mentioned it? Do you
I work in automation, and so I've dealt with like Honeywell before. So
okay. So the reason I bring that up because Tritium is the one open system that any vendor can service. And where this gets tangled to a degree is I feel there's a lot of perception, and it's not misconception, that customers could think, well, if we come and we buy a control system from Honeywell, or from another company that makes their own system, then we're beholden to you for these expensive service contracts. I mean, we can't make any changes without having you come in on X money, and we don't want that. So the Tritium system I mentioned is, again, an open system that is extremely well served by all kinds of different people in the communities. Honeywell also makes things that are more proprietary in nature as well, but honestly, I shouldn't say this in a public forum, my boss would be very unhappy with me, but for schools and town buildings, I don't think you need the Swiss Army knife capabilities of all that. That's more of a heavier commercial building type of play, right? Of course, we would discuss all the benefits with you and make the best decision for you, or with you, I should say, not for you.
And I think when the facilities director looked at it, he just saw the opportunity, and he's been doing a good job of trying to knock off different projects, but if there was an ability to do a big buy and to do a lot at once, and then still have it be financially neutral on the budget, where we're using the same electricity budget to pay the borrowing, I thought he sees that as a good win, and it might cut down on his 5-year plan, to be able to do it quicker, that type of thing.
So this motion, if we were going to move forward at this step, would be to approve or to issue RFP to hire a company to, okay.
Yep.
All right. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we submit a request for proposal to hire a company that will put together an energy plan based on an investment grade audit of all town buildings.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate your time, and very, very thorough throughout the whole night. So.
The last person standing.
I didn't spill anything either for the record.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, water sewer abatement request for 2 to 20 Alexander Avenue. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question of the town administrator?
Sure.
So, 2 questions. Is the water and sewer department okay with this? This is outside of the normal schedule, I understand.
Right, yeah, they were aware of it. I did talk with the superintendent of public works, and he's aware of it. He said a legitimate break. The policy doesn't allow them that they can only do internally the residential properties up to 3 family. So anything beyond that, it would have to go to the Board of Selectmen. So if it's and even if it's a multiple, so that's where some have come to, even residential have come to the board in the past, because once they get one abatement, then the next one has to go to the board. So because this is beyond what the policy allows the department to do, it had to come to the board, but they do feel it's a legitimate request, and they would look at the past 3 bills, and they would average what the expected cost would have been.
Okay.
And the abatement would only be the difference
That was
between
my second
that and
question.
what the current bill was.
So we wouldn't be approving an amount tonight, they'd sort that out?
Right,
Okay.
right. I think that the approval tonight is just giving them the authority to go forward with that process, with that abatement.
Terrific. Mr. Chair, then I move that we authorize the Department of Public Works to move forward with a water and sewer abatement for, are we going for Dyke Drive or, hang on,
That's Alexander Avenue.
2-20 Alexander Avenue in Clinton.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Jumping.
no administrative business. Old and new business, reserve fund transfer, electrical inspector. The electrical inspector is requesting a transfer from the reserve fund in the amount of $1,000 to cover bills for the remainder of the fiscal year due to purchase of new code books, professional development, and mileage expenses.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve transfer from the reserve fund to the electrical inspector for in the amount of $1,000.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Reserve fund transfer, building inspector. The building inspector is requesting a transfer from the reserve fund in the amount of $24,000 to cover consulting costs for building commissioner services while he is in the process of obtaining state certification for this position.
Mr. Chair, could I just get clarification on this? So are we upgrading that position?
Well, no, all towns are required to have a building commissioner. So the current employee came into the position, got his certification as a building inspector. But then during COVID, there was a period of time that he would have, then he could operate on his own. Because previous to that, we used consulting services until he got his certification. And then he's able to operate on his own, so we were able to stop that. But during COVID, they weren't offering the truck courses in order to take the next testing to the next level, which is a difficult exam, I understand. So now he's finished the course, he's getting ready, studying for the exam, but in that interim this past year, the town was being covered by the license of the consultant. So we're just looking to pay those costs, and then going forward, hopefully, our current building inspector will then get commissioner license, and then he's all set from there.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve transfer from the reserve fund for the building inspector in the amount of $24,000.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to commend Mr. Salmon for taking the step to become more certified and more valuable to the town.
Here, here. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Superintendent of Public Works landfill salary. An agreement between the select board and the superintendent of Public Works established for management of the landfill capping project provides that this position receive a stipend of $25,000 for the regular maintenance of the landfill. Another provision of the agreement provides that a bonus of 1.67% be paid on any surplus funds transferred from the landfill enterprise fund to the general fund.
So, Mr. Chair, this is the last payment under that agreement. I know the board 2 years ago had revised that agreement, but it's been in effect for the term of the management of the landfill project. It's something that the town accountant, because it's to the discretion of the select board, generally, each year if the board wanted to revise it, they could. This is kind of post, because the work has already been done, but the town accountant historically every year has just asked the board just to endorse that agreement that's in place, that this payment will be made out by the end of the fiscal year, and that everybody is supportive of that. So it's the same payment that we've been making for the whole history of the project.
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue to endorse the agreement between the Select Board and the Superintendent of Public Works regarding the management of landfill capping, including a stipend of $25,000 for regular maintenance and a bonus of 1.67% to be paid on any surplus funds transferred from the landfill enterprise fund to the general fund.
I'll second.
The only question I have, so this would be for FY '23?
Right.
And then,
And it would be, and all the payments will be pursuant to the agreement, because there are limitations on it.
so then this now ends as of FY '24?
No, as of FY '23. So now the agreement was only in place until June 30th. So I think its subsequent meeting, the board will need to discuss going forward. There's the superintendent of public works anticipates there may be another 6 months to close out the project, to do all the paperwork, to get the project closeout certification from DEP. So there may be a discussion on a partial a management fee, from July to December. So that's something we'll be going forward with the board. But this is just to close out this agreement for this fiscal year. It was 22 and 23, so this will end that agreement, and then we'll have to discuss how we want to handle the next 6 months.
Understood. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. All right. Fire safety inspector discussion, we're gonna table that until our next joint meeting. The WRTA transportation contract, the Worcester Regional Transit Authority has sent the annual agreement for the town of Clinton to provide senior van service through the Council on Aging. The WRTA will provide the buses and a payment of $81,118, and the town provides the drivers and vehicle insurance for the fiscal year. This agreement must be signed by the chair of the select board, letter enclosed.
Mr. Chair, I know that Ms. Gutzel was here. Is there anything dramatic in this?
No, this is just an annual, actually a little bit of dramatic, but this is an annual contract that is approved every year. I think the director of the COA has mentioned during the budget hearing that we were looking to negotiate the price. So the price has gone up substantially. So I think last year's amount was around 50.
I thought we negotiate down.
Yeah, no, I mean, going up of the amount.
Oh, they're paying us, right.
That
Yeah,
payment
that's
that's
great
coming to
job.
the town. So I think last year, we got a payment of $50,000, and now it's $81,000. So
Wow.
they have been, again, the WRTA had been in the process of reworking the numbers to get them to a more realistic, but the same thing during COVID, that kind of all got put on hold. Then they had to pick up the ball again. So they were telling us last year that they would hopefully have something in place for this fiscal year, and it came through. So we're getting about a $30,000 increase on that, so, which is good.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the annual agreement for the town of Clinton with the Worcester Regional Transit Authority to provide senior van service through the Council on Aging.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Open Space Plan Committee Select Board Representatives. The suggested membership of the Open Space Plan Committee is to have a representative from the Select Board. Is there anyone on this board who has interest?
I would be interested.
All right. Everybody good?
Yes.
Very good. You are on. Open Space Plan Consultant Contract. The Assistant Town Administrator is recommending award of a consultant contract in the amount of $49,700 to BSC Group to assist with updating the Clinton Open Space Plan.
And Mr. Chair, this will be paid with the Community Compact Grant funding, the state funds, so.
Sorry. Yeah, do you have a question?
No.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve, that we award a consultant contract in the amount of $49,700 to BSC Group to assist with the updating of the Clinton Open Space Plan.
I'll second.
Any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. High Street Sidewalk Analysis Update. The request for proposals document for the High Street Sidewalk Analysis have been sent to some new engineering firms.
Yep, so we thank you. We got some recommendations from Mr. DeVault, so thank you. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have some responses. So we're still pursuing it, and hopefully get someone that will be willing to take the job.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Excellent. Town Administrator Goals Review. The Select Board would like to discuss an interim review of FY 2023 goals and objectives for the Town Administrator.
doing the discussion now, or are we just saying like, we're just
Yeah,
saying like?
and I know we were gonna talk about 3 and 4, and I know we don't have a full board here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't put 3, I didn't make copies of 3 again, so I do have 4 here, so they was gonna pass out, so, you know.
Thank you.
There was one more that was 5, so if you want to do a comprehensive one at the next meeting.
Yeah.
We'll go over this, to review these and do comprehensive at the next meeting to do the whole wrap-up of the whole year, or if you wanted to talk about any of them tonight, whatever the board feels. This one was just on some of the, you know, the customer service and the accountability and initiatives that we're working on, so.
Do we have any other professional development planned for this year?
Not by the end of this June, but the upcoming year, we're
calendar,
going to be doing some more, so. So I think it was good in this, there was a meeting we had with department heads and then another meeting with the staff, and the consultant's going to come up with some policies and protocols for,
nice.
You know, office administration and, you know, customer service kind of expectations for all offices, so. So that was, I think, a good step, and they're, with the HR, they're looking to develop kind of an ongoing professional development. There's a lot that's offered through our insurer online, as well as this consultant that had come in. It was, you know, relatively, what I said, not a cheap cost, but a good value for what was charged for what we would get out of it. So I think she was looking to do more of that in the upcoming fiscal year, as well as a lot of the ongoing online professional development certifications that people can do, you know, on a day-to-day basis. So through their work, you know, through their computers. So.
I just, under the key actions here for the Assistant Town Administrator Development Communication Strategy, which includes messaging via the town website. I know we don't have, it's not going to be an official kind of like new rollout yet, but just the first glance I had at the updates made to the website, I thought were terrific. So I just wanted to commend both you guys for that initiative. I think it looks great.
Very good.
We appreciate the input from board members. I know Julie and Sean were available as well too to help give some input on that, so it worked out well, came out well. The transition was a little bit, Angela's been doing a lot of work to try to make sure everything came with it from the last one, but we're getting there, and but I think that the layout and the look, I think, is really fresh and new, and Angela is, you know, committed. I think it is part of here is one of our goals is to work with department managers to really kind of robust and enhance what they have on their site, so that we can, the more we can get out there, the better that people can find the information without calling or coming in to see us. So, yep. So I think it's a good project. It was a lot of work. So that's why Angela's been doing most of it. So it's like some of these big projects. You know, it does help kind of move them over the finish line. You know.
Mr. Chair, it is a lot of work, and I want to thank Angela and Michael for working on this. And to the department heads, it's not even a new normal anymore. It's just normal, and it's going to. There might be some backloading that takes some work, but I do think in the end it's going to make everyone's lives easier, and that people are going to have access to things, and you're not going to have to answer the same questions over and over again. If we make these things more robust, like you said, that's what people expect, and that's frankly what people deserve. So thanks for putting the infrastructure out there, and now just hopefully everybody uses it, and like I said, it looks great.
We are going to get training from Civic Plus, so that's coming, so all the staff that are going to be the actual users will know how to do the news flash, update their calendars,
And to that point, I think, like, one of the takeaways when we discuss this is, for this to be successful, it can't be you guys updating everybody's page all the time. You have to really train and hold the department heads accountable for maintaining their own page. So just make sure that you guys are in more of like a monitoring mode and don't get too buried into like constantly, because it can get tempting that way. You just want to get it done, and next thing you know, you're updating everyone's page. Just make sure that everyone has a slice of the responsibility.
Right. We're already doing some internal training. We're not
Perfect.
even waiting for Civic Plus, so
Good.
we're on that.
Yeah.
And the other piece too is, where board was looking to get information out to people, and I think, what Angela's been doing a lot with the social media too, and it's been able to, really kind of heighten our kind of pronged strategy, to do it here, 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 and there, and kind of have the same message going out.
Wonderful. Mr. Chair, just so I think it's appropriate still on this, these are reviews of this specific goal in Mike's, in Angela's progress on goal number 4. But is part of the discussion also to talk about like moving forward on the annual evaluation of the town administrator? And I'm sure Human Resources, because I don't think she was on board the last year we did it. So I don't know if I think we kind of had targeted as like having the summer be the time to handle that, because it's hopefully a little bit slower. We can kind of focus on like that one particular thing. Is that part of this discussion here, or is that already underway? Or?
My recommendation would be that there's still one more goal.
Okay.
Right? And I think between now and the next time we meet, whenever we decide that tonight, to then maybe we can reach out to Christine about, this is what we had done the last time, if there's any recommendations, and then the hope would be when the 5th goal is, we get a spotlight on the 5th goal, then we can close out with the final evaluation.
Perfect. Okay.
And hopefully, we can determine. I would think that we had a brief timeline together on when we would establish your goals for the following fiscal year, and then that timeline would trickle down to your department heads. So I think it was somewhere around August, middle of August.
Say that, yeah.
So that would give us time to complete the evaluation and then work on finalizing goals for FY24 by the middle of August, and then go forward. So I would say we would hold off on the evaluation until
Sounds good.
I can contact Christine this week, and then we can go from there.
All right.
Thank you very much for this. This is great. This is great. Select Board summer meeting schedule. So, is there anything that's time sensitive that the board would need to meet on over the next few weeks?
Yeah, the biggest thing would be the year-end closeout, so all the year-end transfers and any appropriations to close out FY23. That needs approval by Select Board and Finance Committee. So that needs to be done by July 15th. So any time before then would be great. I know the first Wednesday in July is the holiday week, but I don't know if the next week is something that works, or the week before, the week after.
So it's something that we could close that out prior to July 1.
Oh, sure,
Yep.
yeah, it could be done at any time before July 15th. Just working with the town accountant to make sure. I think today or tomorrow, invoices were all due for the end of the fiscal year. So once they run that payables warrant by the middle of next week, they'll know, they'll know where everybody stands on getting through the year. And then Diane Maglios can start putting together that spreadsheet for the board about where areas are short, and if the department needs some money, move money from one line item to the other to close out. So we should know that by the end of next week. So at that point, we then the board can meet at any time before July 15th. Then.
All right, so, would everyone be available on the 28th, which is next Wednesday?
Sure.
Possibly. So I don't know what,
I thought you just said you wouldn't have the bills until Friday?
Right, the bills are due this week, and they'll run the warrant next week. They'll be running the warrant, so, probably by mid next week, they'll probably know where any shortfalls are, so I think if it was the 28th of next week, the 28th, that might be a little bit tight, but.
okay. So, all right, so then the alternative, so the following week would be the week of Independence Day. So would we want to go the 12th, July 12th as the next?
I can do that.
And then, so if we want 1, 2, 3.
So then after that, it's just the regular, whatever comes up after that, so however the board schedules fit for the remainder of the summer.
So that would be the 12th, right? So,
Would we also, so we want to wait until the 12th to have that proposed joint meeting with the finance committee? Or would we want to try to handle that as a separate, like, one item meeting?
does the board or Michael or Angela have any?
I don't want to be blamed for signing us up for meeting too much, but I would be available if the finance committee would be available at some time before July 12th.
So one of the, something we could look at potentially, right? So if we were to meet on the 28th next week, strictly for
Just that.
the ALS, and then we were to meet on July 12th. Any thoughts on if the next time we met was August 9th? Right, and then we would just resume in September.
Yep.
So that would give us, essentially, we would have three meetings over the summer, and then we'd be back on a schedule. I know last year we kind of kept the schedule, but,
Works for me.
if Wednesdays work, great. If they don't, then. So it would be 6/28, 7/12, 8/9, 9/6.
Okay.
Would be the 4 times we meet up through the week of Labor Day.
Works for me.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Is that,
So we're back on the 6th, the 9th, and then the 2 meetings back to back. No, not the
this
5th.
meeting,
Sorry,
yes,
the
this
12th.
week and next week, back to back,
Then the
off until the
12th.
12th.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, we're good.
And then 4 weeks, approximately 4 weeks later on the 9th.
4 weeks without
So
you guys.
is that, so if we meet next Wednesday, is that 5 times in a row? That has to be a record, right? Is that, it has to be 5 weeks in a row. We should be proud of that.
All right, so just to confirm,
Then 5 weeks off.
now, would June,
5 weeks off?
So is that only if the finance committee can meet?
Correct, yes, true.
Let's
It's.
ask
it-
them now.
yes, yeah.
can we meet, yep, so if they can meet us on 6/28, if not, then we're off to the 12th.
Yep.
And then we just broke the record.
Yeah. Just let them
Lost
know
the
the pressure's on, we're going for gold.
All right, 6/28, 7/12, 8/9, 9/6. All right, and then, let's see, where else we're at. So then we had select board, all right. Any committee reports? None from me. None? All right, community announcements. Redesign website the town of Clinton has redesigned the website. We'd like to encourage residents to check it out at www.clintonma.gov. That's www.clintonma.gov. New pages have been added to the site. The website has a Notify Me button on the home page where residents can sign up for email or text notifications from various departments and committees. You can choose to receive alerts when an agenda is posted, an event is scheduled, or when news and jobs are posted. Sign up today and keep in touch with the town of Clinton. Be sure to check out the website as new information will be published throughout the course of the year. I think the posting of the agendas, that I signed up for that alert, and it's unbelievable how convenient it is now where it just comes in on the same, I just got the text, you click on it, you can see the agenda, the time, and that's been very helpful. So I think sometimes if people are on an agenda and they want to know when the follow-up is going to be, sign up for the text alert.
Yeah.
You'll find out as soon as it's posted. That's been a great feature. Very good. Nashua River Project. Please join the town of Clinton and the town of Bolton to celebrate the Nashua River Project. Learn about the work that was done this past year for land use and land management strategies to enhance our open spaces. The celebration will take place on Thursday, June 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. in Central Park. That's Thursday, June 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. in Central Park. Spanish interpretation will be provided. More details on the town website. This is a project that was funded by an MVP grant. Boards and committees. This is a reminder that the town of Clinton is seeking volunteers for appointments to various boards and committees. Interested applicants should submit a letter or resume to the Select Board by Friday, June 30th to be considered. More details about the boards are on the town website.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Is there one page on the website right now, or could there be in the future, where we just, so people that are interested, they go to one page and they can have a brief description of all the different boards and how many positions are open, are like available?
So as part of the upgrade, we have added every board on there.
Okay.
And like the Cultural Council wasn't on there, so now we have a link to their site.
Okay.
We're working on getting everyone's name on there. So some of the committees did have names listed.
Okay.
So I think once we do this new round of appointments, we can make sure that that's all up to date.
Okay.
But the announcement on the website that says that we're looking for volunteers does list all the boards.
Okay.
And then there's a link that'll go to their
Okay.
website.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's what I'm interested is if we advertise this, and I don't know if we should consider extending that, I don't know, I guess we'll see what we get for feedback on June 30th, but I'd be open. I wouldn't have any issue with extending that 15 or 30 days and just holding all the current appointments like the way they are, just to give people more time to understand that these positions are open and we're trying to get more civic engagement and see if we can, anything that we can do to kind of get the messaging out. The website is certainly going to be a good tool for that. So we can revisit it.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's interested in any open spots or any, if they're interested in serving on any board or committee and they're able to submit something by Friday the 30th,
Yeah.
then we can at least review that.
Okay.
But I think the idea of kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit, if there's vacant spots, and absolutely continue to market it to get it. But if there's people that are interested in serving on the
Fair
board and
enough.
they respond by that time, then,
Yep.
we can
I'm fine with
make the
that.
appointment.
Yep.
Or if we decide, to hold off, but I would say we push forward.
I agree.
Textile recycling. Planet Aid boxes are now located at the Clinton Recycle Center at 99 Woodlawn Street. Planet Aid accepts donations of men's and women's children's clothes, shoes, and accessories, as well as blankets, curtains, and sheets. Please keep textiles out of the trash and recycle them. And I know that's all, there's a problem, sometimes people throw textiles that are trash into the recycling, bins, which, is not
The
ideal.
hope is where it's at the recycle, you're right,
Yeah.
absolutely. We've had that problem in the past, and we've had to then remove them when they're unmanned at different properties.
Yeah.
But here, where it's at this recycle center, hoping that there'll be more eyes on it between Mr. Cobb and the DPW that will be able to control a little better.
Very good. Thank you. All right, so we will tentatively have a meeting next Wednesday, June 28th at 7 PM, unless posted on the town website if there's any change to that schedule. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.